Hey guys, how you doing? It's Friday night, 7 p.m. And as I promised, tonight we're going to be having I believe it'll be a wonderful discussion, but we'll be talking with Jay Dyer and just some of the basics on the man. If you're not familiar with him, his website is Jay's Analysis. He also has a podcast he does under the same name, I believe, which is dedicated to investigating the deeper themes and messages found in our 21st century globalist pseudo culture and illustrating the connections between philosophy, metaphysics, secret societies, Hollywood. I mean, all the good stuff, all the stuff we love, psychological warfare, and comparative religion. Regular contributor to Activist Post, 21st Century Wire, Global Research. I believe this is all. Actually, there's more information.
That's kind of an old one, yeah.
Right, that's old. In fact, last time you and I talked, you and another Jay were going to do a TV show. Didn't you start that already?
Yeah, we did a whole season of that, and it's streams at Gaia. It was a lot of fun. It's called Hollywood Decoded, and basically we kind of took what was in my first book, Esoteric Hollywood, and we made it a full season of a TV show. So there's like 19 episodes, 20 episodes. So basically we cover Eyes Wide Shut, we cover Dark Knight trilogy, Lord of the Rings, and Matrix, all the ones you might expect. We kind of just broke them down one by one in terms of all the symbolism. So very similar to the stuff that you do.
So we can find that on Gaia TV.
It's on Amazon Prime too. It's on some of the streaming stuff. Yes, there's different places you can find it, but Gaia is who basically just bought it. So I don't have anything. I don't work for Gaia. I don't have anything to do with all that.
I know, right? I figured you know all about Gaia anyway, right? It's being weaponized against us, I guess. That's Agenda 2030 as well as a part of that Mother Earth.
Yeah, they stream all kinds of stuff though. Like they have documentaries by James Corbett on there. They've got they basically just kind of buy content and stream it out. So,
oh, right on, cool. And let me throw this out for the people as well, man. In case they didn't know, he's also an author. Jay's written a book called Esoteric Hollywood. Awesome book. Last time we talked, we discussed it. Now he has a part 2. So we'll be talking about some of that as well. Before we get into some of that, though, man, let's talk about some current things. Actually, yeah. I saw you did a video about Bird Box. I didn't get to watch it yet. What were your thoughts on that? I have some as well.
I think it's goofy, dude. I mean, it's worth talking about in terms of the symbolic aspects of it. So you're right to have your esoteric sniffers out trying to find, the thing to look at. And everybody was talking about. That's the only reason I watched this, because everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
So I gave it a shot. Thought it was really dumb, but it was worth talking about because it does utilize some interesting symbolism. So without giving away too much, I don't want to spoil it for you or anybody that hasn't seen it. I focused in my little I just kind of made fun of it, but I focused on the blindfold, which I took to be pretty Masonic in its origins. And I thought that basically the Sandra Bullock character is being initiated into a kind of Gnostic view. So, in Gnosticism, you have the idea that the sensible world is created by this evil demiurge, and it's here to trick us and entrap us. And so she's kind of blocking it out to survive and to be enlightened. And they portray it like everybody. I know this sounds crazy, but it's almost like it's so absurd that they would do this, but it's almost, but I think they did. They have the people that want to wake people up are the crazy.
Oh, right.
People.
I watched it, by the way. I did see it. Other people might not. Man, go ahead. That's a good observation.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like a weaponized thing where they're telling us that if you're trying to wake people up, you're part of this crazy cult that wants people to see evil and to see the demonic. And the way to really, achieve enlightenment, like Sandra Bullock, I called it wine moms of the demon apocalypse. Is to just blindfold yourself and float away down a river and don't worry about it.
Yep.
I thought it was really absurd.
Man, what a great observation. I like that. Okay, that makes sense to me because I figured there was more I'd missed. I mean, I got stuck on the Cthulhu stuff because there's a moment, not to spoil, but there's a moment where a guy lays out a bunch of pictures, this creature comes in different forms, and there's a lot of obvious Cthulhu stuff there. And definitely. I know Cthulhu, right? Like when a human sees Cthulhu, they die from their fear. I know that's part of the mythology. So, I think they maybe threw some of that stuff in. But man, I like what you're saying. I even noticed on the poster they had a red and a blue, specifically blindfold. So very much like politically red and blue, you know.
Yeah, and the John Malkovich character is a very arrogant, bitchy John Malkovich, I called him, and he talks like this, like he always does. But he's a Trump supporter. So the evil John Malkovich is the Trump supporter who is basically right about a lot of things, which is the weird part of it, because he gets a lot of things right, but he's just a butthole. And nobody can stand him. Nobody can stand him as a character. And so I thought that was an odd element. And of course, he dies, right? He doesn't survive. Even though he gets a lot of things right, he ends up dead. And the only person that makes it is Sandra and her. I think one of them is her kid. And the other one's not her kid. She's taken the kid of this fat chick.
Yeah.
And they just kind of float away. And you know, basically everybody they fight is like an evil, you know, white guy who wants to show them the truth. And I think that's true.
You're right. And the white guys were all a bit country, you know, as well. Yeah. So they threw that in, and, you know, just, wow, that's that's a fantastic observation. And it goes right in line with your observation on the, you know, Trump loving character as well, actually giving some truth, actually having knowledge, but in the movie that's still seen as bad because, as you say, he dies and everybody hates him. So it's like, you willingly put on your blindfold, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was hard to detect a consistent narrative in the presentation, but you know, Netflix has been doing this lately. I did a video, not just on Bird Box, but also Maniac. I don't know if you saw Maniac, which
I didn't finish it.
I liked it. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was interesting. It kept my attention. It was a little slow in parts, but, you know, it had a lot of Gnostic, esoteric, occult influence going on there. So I dissected that. So, but I think that, you know, Netflix is totally participating in this revelation of the method stuff. And it could be in part because, I don't know if you noticed that Obama joined Netflix as part of the production company.
Yes, you're right. They're going to be producing a lot of material there, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a good observation. No, you're totally right. I mean, because look at the trans agenda. They have you know, tranny type cartoons on there and stuff. I mean, they're a part of this whole new world.
KJ, what are you trying to say about Michelle? You trying to talk about Michelle? Talk about my beautiful wife, Michelle. KJ,
here's one for you. Have you noticed this on your end? You probably have. The transvestigation channels that popped up out of nowhere saying that everybody is a tranny.
I can't stand that, dude. That's so stupid.
I know, right? And what's really effed up is, and it's a good example of just where we're at in the truth and stuff. You know, I mean, our ex-president's wife most likely has a wiener. I mean, I believe that, you know, I really do. And I know that's some wild stuff, but we're living in a Baphomet reality now, you know, so I believe that. But then that's where people take it and these psyops start. Suddenly it's like, well, then everybody's
yeah, right.
Right.
I am too. I have a plastic PP covering up a very large vajayjay.
Oh gosh, did you see that? You probably did. They're actually selling those to kids, the fake packages.
I watched all your streams, bro.
Thanks, man. Goodness gracious.
I saw that.
Let me throw this one at you then. Here's another one a lot of people have been talking about is Bandersnatch from Netflix.
Oh yeah. That's on my list to do. I haven't got to that yet, but I see everybody talking about it. And I actually wrote a long essay. I thought about putting it in the second book, but probably 10, 15 page analysis of the first 3 seasons of
Black Mirror.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that yet, but if people are interested in my analysis of Black Mirror, I do have a really long written essay about it, but I'm looking forward to that. I mean, it sounds pretty crazy. I heard you talking about it.
Yeah, I still haven't seen all the possibilities, and I kept trying to find, you know, what was it they were really, you know, what do I need to see here? What's important? And then a friend of mine pointed out that there's a portion in it, and again, it's, you know, it's a make your own adventure type thing, not to spoil, but here's just one example. One of your choices is to have this guy kill his father, and if you go through it long enough, you realize it continually makes you have this kid basically kill his father. So there's one aspect.
Wow. You know, I bet what they're doing with this choose your own adventure stuff is getting people to participate in these kind of live action things. And I remember reading some articles we covered in some of the podcasts we did, me and my friends a few years ago. We saw them talking about Netflix was going to start rolling out these active audience participation things.
Oh,
And so we'll probably start seeing more and more of that. And my theory is that this is intended eventually to meld with the way they're taking theme parks. So if you've seen the new Star Wars theme park that they're building, it's supposed to be fully immersive. And for example, if you watch the videos on it, they say that if you go to the cantina, and let's say it's almost like role-playing LARPy stuff, where if you get into it with the guy at the cantina, when you go back to your hotel room, they know what you've done and what's happened. So like,
wow.
yeah, isn't that weird? So the concierge will be like, heard you had a hard time at the Mos Eisley cantina there, you know? So, and it sounds, oh, that's going to be so much fun. We're all going to get to LARP and pretend that we're Yoda and Han Solo and all this stuff. But really what it is it's a way to do a large scale surveillance that people opt into, and to see the kinds of choices people would make in those situations. So I think that's what's going on in these for mind control, to figure out how to better control people. And I know you've talked about Westworld. I did analysis of Westworld. That's what we're going to. Westworld is not just telling us about transhumanism, but it's also saying, like, I think they're going to really roll out theme parks that are like that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, seriously, I've been really fascinated lately with the smart homes, and I'm actually working on a bit of a video. I always have something in the works, and I'm waiting on more pieces. But it's amazing how they really are going to eventually, they're going to connect all of us through 5G, through our homes, through our appliances, through our chips. You know, it's like I see how it's all going to come together now.
Yeah, I covered in my new book, I covered that kind of stuff towards the end, where I have a section on the movie Her. I don't know if you saw that Spike Jonze movie with Joaquin Phoenix, where it's this dystopian thing where he's in love with his operating system, basically. So I actually included, like, I have a chapter on Her in there, which is about the smart house and all that stuff that's coming. And you talked about Alexa. This is preparing us for that. Like, Alexa is going to be like the next phase of that. And then eventually it'll be the house, and then your house is going to be connected to everybody else's house, and it's all going to, it's a nightmare that people are all going to opt into, thinking it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, even on Her, I wound up doing kind of a little music video on that one, and I just showed, and it's been years, so I can't remember everything about it, but it's still on the website or on the YouTube channel somewhere. But I remember his little buddy was a gray alien, right? Didn't he have like a little, right? So in that, and of course I showed the connection with the fallen ones, and this little gray alien kept trying to get him to go through a portal. And I mean, all this stuff, you know, it's just crazy how there was all these layers on there, because to me, it's all connected to the same thing anyway.
That's right. He's playing like an immersive 3D hologram game. You're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that's, you know,
yeah. And he's talking to that little alien guy. Yeah. Forgot about that.
Right. That was the thing that stood out the most. And then, like, you know, again, the obvious stuff, the transhumanists, the falling in love with computers and whatnot. But wow. So yeah, I look forward to your approach on Bandersnatch whenever you get a chance to see that.
Yeah, I think the AI smart city stuff, I've been covering that for a long time. And one of the things I do is a globalist book series lecture I've been doing like the last year and a half, where I just take book by book from the globalists themselves, and I do a talk on it. And one of those that I did was Jacques Attalie's Brief History of the Future. He's kind of the Kissinger of France, is what he's called. So he's kind of like a deep state dude in France, who's in the back of like Mitterrand and Macron, you know, these presidents.
Oh, wow.
Who are he's basically the handler of the presidents for the globalist elite. So he's a big proponent of UN agenda stuff, of basically global government, AI. But what was craziest about his book, which he wrote in 2006, is that not only did he predict that we would all be doing live streams by now.
Wow. Okay.
So he was writing this back in 2006. He says everybody's going to be live streaming their content, and then he says that'll be eventually global. And then he says that the purpose of all the AI is to have everybody in megalopolis smart cities, and they're all going to be run by AI, and the AI will determine basically everything that it's going to dictate your life, from womb to tomb, from, you know, waking up in the morning until you go to sleep.
Goodness.
Yeah. And he says that will be the means by which there will be a single global government. Essentially the B system that you talk about is what Attalie, as a proponent of this system, he completely lays it all out. He says it's all going to be a complete technocracy B system. And again, he's not just some nobody conspiracy theorist. He's not just some government bureaucrat. He's like a top globalist.
Wow. Well, good job on that, man. Good research. I mean, you're going straight to the source.
Yeah, we've done about 16, I think. So we've done like H.G. Wells, Bertrand Russell, Attlee, Arthur Koestler, Ghost in the Machine. That's a crazy one. And Ghost in the Machine, I remember like years ago, I remember Alex Jones used to say stuff like, folks, they're going to roll out human sacrifice, folks. They're going to roll out human sacrifice. And I was like, how are they going to roll out human sacrifice and cannibal? That sounds crazy. But then when you actually look at Ghost in the Machine, what Kessler says in that book is that the elite, the technocratic elite, he says they're going to commandeer evolution because they believe in evolution like a religion, like Luciferian transhumanism, literally in this book.
Yeah.
He says since the ancient world practiced cannibalism, it's just as natural as anything else in the natural world, right? Animals eat other animals. Nothing wrong with cannibalism. He says, so therefore there's nothing wrong about the elite being cannibalistic. And when we roll out this sort of global government, he says, there's nothing wrong with it being completely satanic and cannibalistic. He says, because that's just nature. And here's the crazy part. The last chapters in the book, the last 2 sections are about rolling out GMOs and pharmaceuticals, vaccines, to experiment on people and to intentionally commandeer evolution to basically morph them into whatever the elite want. Isn't that crazy? He's one of the top globalists. And they just write all this in their books.
I need to check. Obviously we'll be talking after this, but I want to find this and I need to research all that. That's amazing. And, we need more information like that because there's no denying that, you can show that to people who don't believe, who are still asleep or whatever.
People don't think it's a plan. But then when you start to look at, oh, hey, look, here's these top globalists who 50, 60, 100 years ago said it was a plan.
That is just it's amazing, man. It really is. I mean, I'm happy to be alive in this time. I don't know about you. I think it's incredible. I love watching what's happening. It's fantastic. It's because humanity is trying to fight back, and there's a lot of us trying to wake people up. A lot of people are waking up on their own, and you feel me? I mean, do you feel the energy? Isn't it kind of exciting to be alive right now?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't have people all the time. They say, how are you not depressed if all this is true? Number one, it is true. It's not if it's true, but it is true. And I'm not depressed because for me, it really vindicates the reality of evil, vindicates the reality of good. I don't mean that in a Gnostic way. I just mean that just in a practical way, people do start to realize the reality of the good and the existence of good and God ultimately when they do see evil, when it's really put in their face that, hey, we've been as a society denying the existence of the devil, denying the reality of evil for centuries now, since the Enlightenment and so forth. And we're being reminded that evil is very real and it has to be opposed. And I do think that it's a good sign that a lot of people are opposing evil.
Yeah, and that's so true, man. I get a lot of those messages as well, and people act like I'm bringing you bad news, and I'm like, to me, this is good news because
wouldn't you rather know that a vaccine would be dangerous to take it? I mean, come on.
Totally, exactly. I'd rather know. And, we do, all of us who break these symbols do a service, really, because we're showing people the fact that there is mind control. Now, once you see the symbols, you see all these movies and shows and corporate logos in completely different ways. It's because you've been freed,
Well, yeah. I mean, if Maniac talks about MKUltra and handlers and all that and mind control, literally, it's mentioned in the series, literally. And if Stranger Things literally references MKUltra, people start to realize, hey, maybe these guys decoding symbolism for all these years, maybe they're not crazy. Like it actually is there, and it's not just this movie or that movie. It's a lot of movies. And it's there for a reason. And I think once people start picking up on it, it's hard to unsee it. You know what I mean? And so it does become a very powerful tool for waking people up.
Yeah, even in Bandersnatch, there's a book that's a kind of a key point throughout the whole film. And it's, of course, the Illuminati pyramid with the eye, the beast system. But yeah, you're right. It's all there and it's all come out. And it's exciting to see more and more people wake up. I love seeing it. But on the other hand, we're seeing the resistance. I did a video a while back called First the Statues, Then the Churches. because they were tearing down the statues. They didn't agree with the history behind. Remember a while back? And so I can see that kind of, I call it that Antichrist spirit on the rise. How about politically, man? Because, you know, you're like me in the respect, I think that I'm not real political, but what do you think about the Trump wall stuff? I've been watching some of that lately.
He seems to be sincere in his intentions, but I don't think they're going to let it happen. I mean, you know, I think it would be, you know, every country has borders. It's obviously a sensible approach to national security, obviously. Yeah. But whether he'll actually be able to get that done with all of the entire, you know, globalist establishment in opposition is a different question. So, I mean, I've kind of kept up with it, but at the same time, I also kind of don't really pay a whole lot of attention to politics. I listen to people that, you know, do geopolitics. I think geopolitics is really interesting, but the Democrat, Republican, American stuff, I don't pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, I definitely feel you on that. Plus, it can be so infuriating. You know, it'll pull you right back in if you're not careful. You know, looking at that stuff again, and it makes you angry because they're both sides are lying so much, and there's just so much kind of anarchy. But I figured I'd throw that out at you. Well, we'll move beyond that then, man. And if you'd like, actually, I'm curious too about your take on the Avengers. Did you ever get a chance to see that one?
Yes, Infinity War. Is that what we're talking
about? Yeah, Infinity War, especially with talking about these massive agendas, the New World Order and whatnot.
I did a video on Infinity War. So what was amazing about that was I wasn't expecting it to, in that installment, really bring together the Kabbalah elements of it. So basically you have this Platonic Kabbalah version of what happened in the universe, to where basically power was fragmented into these shards, you know, the crystals basically that are representative of basically different divine powers. And so they have to be collected back together. That's what the purpose of the Infinity Gauntlet is. And, you know, whoever has it basically has the God powers. And comics, Marvel, you know, for a long time has been implementing not just ancient mythology, but kind of combining it with the transhumanist mythology. So I think that's the crazy part about it, is that the aspects of technology that are advancing that fast kind of are showing us almost like, you know, the possibility of some mythological superhero type stuff being true, depending on how far they'll, you know, get things with like super soldier type projects and all that. But anyway, where I would point is that what was crazy about it was that, number one, it kind of revealed the mythology of that universe, roughly being Kabbalistic, I would argue, in my video. And then the solution that the rising techno god, you know, what's his name, Thanos, yeah, which is what, isn't that mean like death or something? And or is that Thanatos? I forget it. I think in Greek Thanatos is death or something like that. But you know, he randomizes the process of mass depopulation, and he argues that it has to be done in a sort of he's divorced from it emotionally, doesn't have any feelings about it. It has to be done to balance the forces in the universe. And that's exactly what the globalists themselves say, that the reason that everybody has to die in mass depopulation is to balance the forces in nature, balance Gaia's, you know, mankind is a cancer on the surface of Gaia. It has to be balanced out, right? The Georgia Guidestones, this kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's exactly what, whether it's Bertrand Russell or whether it's Arthur Kessler or whether it's Jacques Attali or any of the globalist book series that I've done, they say the exact same things. They say what Thanos says. They say that just like you might control the deer population in some region, the human population has to be drastically reduced and controlled for balance. So yeah, so that's the angle I took on it.
Did you ever see Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
Mm-hmm.
You did? Yeah, so isn't it crazy? Even in that one, here's a god, right, called Ego, that flies around in space.
Oh, yeah.
All-seeing eye. Yeah.
Dad, yeah. And he's in an egg. The egg is in Plato's Timaeus in the mythology of ancient Greece, which continues into like the witchcraft tradition. The egg represents the universe.
Oh, interesting.
Because they see it like a insemination. So you'll see a lot of times the snake and the egg, wrapped around together in
Right.
like esoteric stuff. And that symbolizes the germination, the generation of the universe in its beginning. So if you read Plato's Timaeus, he describes the universe as this giant snake eating itself, a giant Ouroboros.
Mhm. Man, that's great. That's again, that's one of the symbols that always comes back. There's new bad guys showing up this season in The Walking Dead, and they're called the Whisperers, and they're people that wear zombie skin and hang out with zombie hordes, and then they'll stab you when they walk by you and stuff. They're really scary, you know. But the lead lady is Alpha. The second in command is Beta, which is this huge dude. But Alpha wears the Ouroboros belt buckle. That's like her famous look in the show.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know where that's going, but
I haven't seen the season. I stopped watching when Rick was going, Coral.
I know, man, that was rough. Well, they're supposed to be making 3 movies. We'll see what happens, but
they're gonna make 3 Walking Dead movies.
Yeah, there's going to be 3 Walking Dead movies with what happened to Rick after the event happened in Walking Dead with him. So they're going to continue on with him with 3 movies. First one coming out within a year, and then they're just continuing on the series without him. You know, which is interesting. Even there, it's like in a lot of ways they've got rid of the. I've said this in the past, but they kind of got rid of the toxic masculinity, and now they've brought in like there's 5 gay characters on the show now. You know. So that's how, and most of the women are in command. Now, again, no offense to that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you can see these agendas play out. I mean, worldwide, you know, even of course on Walking Dead. I mean, there's so much money behind that, and there's so many views, you know.
Coral.
God, man, yeah, it's been a rough one. I mean, Negan and all that was really rough for me, but you know, it's interesting.
Did you watch or do you like this new season, or is it not that good?
You know, I'm old school. I miss Carl, or I miss Carl too, but I also miss Rick, and we'll see. Well, my whole reason for watching, when I lived in LA, I had a buddy, Quint, struggling actor back in the day. I think he finally left eventually too, but we used to hang out a lot, and he worked at a comic shop during the day somewhere in the valley, and he one day brought over a bunch of these comic books. This is like over a decade ago, and they were all The Walking Dead. So I read everything up to past the Whisperer War, which is kind of where we are now. They're about to fight the Whisperers, you know.
I see.
It's just the geek in me, but I will throw back real quick, though. So Kurt Russell again as God, right, in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The whole idea is kind of like what you're saying, too. He constantly was creating new life throughout the universe and then killing it over and over and again, right, like recycling it. And they even showed the moment where he was talking about they had the all-seeing eye spaceship, right, up there, the egg, and it was like almost flashing a movie. And in that movie, he was explaining how he's created creation over and over and killed it. But he at one point literally showed like the Black Pyramid in the background. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah, no, this makes me think too of a pattern we see in all kinds of movies. I mean, essentially the template that Hollywood always does for their films and of this nature is the Gnostic template. So they reason from the world that if this world was created, then it had to have been created by a foolish, blind watchmaker, right? Like the Dawkins book or the blind watchmaker, whatever. Like he's this bumbling old foolish god, the demiurge, who created this lesser world, and we are trapped here, and we got to get away from it to find our own true godhood or whatever. And the reason I say that is because I just did a talk on a really good book critiquing Darwinism called Darwin and the Problem of Evil by a guy named Cornelius Hunter. And the book was really good because he pointed out the similarities between Darwinism and Gnosticism, because what they all do in their approach to the world or God is that they don't take into account the fall. Like it wasn't popular in Darwin's day in Victorian England to even countenance the point of the fall of man, and the fall of man affected the entire cosmos, right? So the reason that we see decay, corruption, death in the natural world is because of the fall of man. So when you don't take that into account in your worldview, then you can see why they would say, well, if this world was created by a good God, then he's a deceiver and he's a blind, foolish, old bumbling creator. And because the world that's out there is vicious, is predatory, predator prey, you know, there's death everywhere. Death is just as powerful as life in the natural world. So, you know, and that's the point, is that, so they fall into the Gnostic trap because they don't have a correct doctrine of creation and the fall. And that's exactly what Darwin did. And so whether it's the Matrix with the great architect having to, start these systems all over again, with Neo being the 9th version of Neo or whatever, whoa, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or whether it's the Gnostic presentation in Avengers, or whether it's the Gnostic conception in, dudes, I can't even, like, half the movies that you analyze are going to be this Gnostic doctrine.
Yeah, and it's always like, making Lucifer out to be God.
He's the liberator, exactly.
He's the good guy. Like, in fact, DC just released news like today that they're making a Jesus Christ comic book. I think it's literally called The Second Coming. And in this, it's Jesus is kind of a buffoon that screwed up the first time around. So God, his father, is sending him back to Earth to follow literally like a sun god. It's a superhero called the Sun Man or something, with a sun on his freaking chest. Again, doesn't get so much more obvious. The sun worship, Masonic
level stuff here, right?
Oh, dude, it's insane. I'm just like, what? I mean, even after all these years, probably like you, I still get surprised sometimes by things. You would think I wouldn't, but every now and then I do, especially one that's really thrown me for a loop lately, kind of off the God subject, but is this kid Desmond is amazing. I know a lot of people have been talking about this child. I talked about him in a few of my videos here and there, like Satan Loves the Little Children, available only on my website. But what do you think about that? Because we're literally seeing now the straight up sexualization of the children, and the end of that rainbow bridge, which is going to end in a pit, really.
Well, if people haven't seen and I'm not advocating Crowley, but I'm saying if people haven't seen the sort of the darker side of the Crowleyan type stuff, then they don't understand the belief in the destruction of innocence. And so all the dark, descendants of Crowley and his followers, they all kind of have that perspective that they're releasing kind of demonic power through mass destruction of innocence. And so if you don't have that spiritual template to understand this stuff, you're not going to understand it. You're not going to be able to connect the dots between what's happening here. Why is it happening globally, by the way, if it wasn't coordinated by an actual evil spiritual power? And it is. But a lot of people miss that because they don't, again, have that sort of biblical worldview. But I think you're totally right that I mean, I listened to your analyses of this and how just degenerate this is. And really, I mean, this should be illegal, right? I mean, the same people that talk about abuse in like the Catholic Church or abuse in Hollywood, right? And there are media outlets that will talk about that, and they'll turn around and defend that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I've wondered, like a total double mind.
Yeah, I've wondered before about, different ways we can really get active on things. And then I've thought, what if, there was a movement a while ago on YouTube a few years ago in the so-called truth movement, where I saw people doing what they called truth bombs. So they would go to Twitter and, news stories that they didn't agree with that were usually, extremely Marxist and, New World Order-ish or whatever. And they would just nail it, with thumbs down and just complaining. And I've thought, what if we can somehow do that here in the future, like, even with this Desmond child thing, get everyone together, do a live show, say, let's go to the parents' Twitter or something like that. And like, I don't know, let them have it. I don't know. There's got to be something better. How about reporting this as a child abuse? Maybe going to a website where you can report this as child abuse and use our numbers. I mean, do you see, I've never done anything like that. I've wondered before. Again, you got to be careful with this stuff too, but
organized campaigns. That's an interesting question. I mean, the left does it, so it seems like it could work. But of course, a lot of the people in the tech power structure, they're not our friends. So they can probably shut that stuff down pretty quick. So, dude, so it's hard to say how effective it would be. I don't know. It's a good question.
No, I feel you, and that's the other side of it too. Is that, look, hey, we still have YouTube channels up. A knock on wood. I mean, I literally pray about this every day. That I'm grateful that. I pray for protection, man, because to still have a channel up is quite a feat nowadays. So we really do have to be like wise as the serpent as well. I'm careful of how I label my videos now and tags I use. You got to be smart. We're literally dealing with an AI. We're dealing with an algorithm.
Figure out what things you can and can't talk about, right?
Right?
Like
Isn't it lame?
certain shooting events. Can't talk about those.
Oh, especially not those. Yeah. I mean, I even took down, I had a video up from like 4 or 5 years ago on the Sandy HOOK event, so to speak, and yanked that biatch right down. I was like, whoa, they haven't found this one yet. And I was like, okay. And, you know, there only been a few of those I've had to do that to. At least I feel I've had to, but I always post them back up on my website. But you know what I mean? Like, we're in that battle right now.
Yeah, I mean, I had to deal with some of that earlier this year with problems on WordPress. So
What happened? Oh, yeah. Tell us about what happened. Tell the audience if you don't mind.
it was just one of these. It was a single post that had an image of something. I won't say what, but it wasn't anything nudity or anything. It was related to one of these events. Okay, and it was an image that was supposed to be copyrighted, but I didn't have the image itself. I had a screenshot of the BBC website. And so because the image was very small in the BBC website screenshot, there was some kerfluffle over this. So a long time ago, I removed the screenshots. So like, there's no point in, I mean, the post has come and gone. Nobody's reading the post anyway. So I was like, all right, I'll just take the image out of the post. And I thought it had gone away, but then that was the very flimsy basis upon which eventually WordPress, at the same hour as other prominent people were taken down. Not that I'm that prominent, I'm not, but I'm just saying, like, really prominent people were like, it was like almost coordinated, you know, like right away.
Yeah.
So with no warning or anything, so I had to had basically 7 days to export the website, and this was months ago, but I'm still repairing the old posts because I had hundreds of essays I'd written, hundreds of articles, and most of everything was salvaged. But it basically took me a month to build a new website, repair everything, repair all the archives, because I have a subscriber section for people that subscribe to Hour 2 and to talks and lectures. Right on. So I had to repair all that. It took forever.
I'm sorry to hear you went through all that, but are you doing okay? Like, most of the people back, or how you looking?
In a weird way, it turned out to be a blessing because I had a lot of support as a result of that. So I actually had a lot of people, hundreds of people poured out a lot of support. Very thankful for all that. And that kind of helped me keep me going through the month to rebuild, basically. So,
oh, good. You know what's crazy too? Let me throw this at you. Have you ever heard of a YouTube channel called the Kev Baker Show?
Yeah, I've been on with Kev twice, I think.
Oh, you know him. Okay. So, man, just a while back, he did a post. I actually donated to him as well at the time, but he did a post where somebody had been taking all of his videos and re-uploading them, and the YouTube algorithm basically thought that was him, the new uploads, and they busted him for what they call duplication, which is a new way they're taking people down. You heard about that?
I heard that they were not favoring mirroring re-uploads.
Oh yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, I mean, dude, if you guys are listening, and especially if you're YouTubers and create content, you got to be careful, man, with everything. I mean, you better not have a channel where it's mainly mirrored videos, re-uploaded images, or, you know, videos or whatever, because they're coming after people that way as well now.
Wow. Well, I, by permission, you know, uploaded quite a few things over the years. You think they'll go back and get old ones?
I don't know, because, you know, we're in the same boat there, because most of my videos are my original, just me talking. But over the last, you know, sometimes I'll do these full on just clip videos, you know, which is all right. And it's all like news, freedom, whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I always fill it out. I run through these little tests I have to make sure that it's okay to upload this stuff. And I've been right up, you know, I've been good up to now myself, but it's been a real process, and you really have to think about it. So I don't know, Jay. And, you know, you're kind of like, I mean, you believe in God and all that, and you follow Christ and stuff as well, I believe. So, you know, that's literally where I'm at with it. I just pray about it, man. I'm like, because I don't know what else to do, and I'm not going to sit around worrying about it, you know?
Right. Well, you know, I mean, I have a lot of different means by which I put my information out. So, you know, YouTube's been great. I put a lot of energy into YouTube just the last year and a half. Really started focus on making videos, and grew pretty quick. I mean, we're not anywhere in the scariest movie ever category, but we went from about 3,000 to 30,000 in the last year and a half. So it's been a pretty good growth curve. So I like having that there. It's a great tool, and I certainly don't want to lose that. But you know, I have to be prepared for the loss of any of it at any time. That's just the reality of the situation that we live in. If you try to talk about real issues, but yeah, no, I've got the website, and I've got, you know, other outlets to put my information on. I think if I was ever like, you know, I could write for other websites. I got 2 books out now. The first one, you know, it did really well. We did the TV show, and then the second book just now hit #1 in the movie category.
Okay, you did that with the first book as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so I don't think it would be too hard to find work. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different media outlets, I think, that I could be okay with.
See, if they ever took everything away from me, I'd just become a cross-country truck driver. That's what I keep telling myself. But, you know, I don't, and I just maybe do live shows every now and then, just talking about stuff on the road.
Well,
but, you know, go ahead.
Well, the good news, I think, is that there will always be outlets and avenues. I think,
yeah,
you know, tech has always kind of evolved, unless they like implement some kind of thing that really shuts everything down or something, if they chose to do that. But, you know, as long as things are functioning roughly like they do now, there's always going to be a new platform, a new thing that comes out, a new, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really quick in tech.
Yeah, there will be something. And I'm like you. I mean, I joke around, but I've diversified them in a couple other areas just in case. But, you know, again, I don't ever put focus too much energy on that. I wanted to throw another kind of thing at you, something I've covered a few times myself, but not in a long time. I need to, and I know you've covered it and probably covered it again here as well in Esoteric Hollywood too, is the connection between the CIA and the alphabet agencies and Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big part of book 1, and it was kind of the crowning chapter on the first book after a lot of Kubrick, a lot of Spielberg, a lot of Hitchcock, and David Lynch. I crowned it with CIA and Hollywood, a dark marriage is what I called that chapter. And then I thought, well, okay, so I've done these directors, but I need to also talk about in the second book, the mobs, how the mafia relates to Hollywood and intelligence agencies, which is a big piece of the puzzle that I wasn't aware of for a long time. I've really only kind of branched out into that arena, that puzzle piece in the last 3 or 4 years, which is really fascinating because it's a big part of it as well. So the intelligence agencies and the mafia, you know, CIA and Hollywood, that's a big part of the first section of the second book. So, you know, when we look back to the rise of Hollywood early on, you know, I think we talked about when we did our show a couple of years ago, I think I talked about the character of Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes is a great example of this intersection between the worlds of movies, intelligence, and even maybe cults in a weird way. So he's a fascinating character. He was involved in all that stuff for a long time. I discussed the Martin Scorsese movie, you know, Aviator, about him. And he's back in the 20s and 30s, right? So this is not new. This was Hollywood was working this way back then. I talked a lot in the first book about James Bond and Ian Fleming. There's a easily detectable direct connection between high-level British intelligence and naval psyops and Hollywood. One of the biggest images of Hollywood of all time, 007. It's iconic.
Oh yeah.
And that's and he also connects to the world of the esoteric, the occult. Not him directly, Fleming, but his overseers, his handlers, they work directly with Crowley. So there's a close connection, even though I don't think Ian Fleming and Crowley ever met. Fleming knew about Crowley, but then they didn't never personally meet, I don't think. But Crowley was being handled by some of the same guys in MI5. So, oh my God. And that's discussed in Dr. Richard Spence's book, Secret Agent 666. So there's an example there of the intersection of those worlds, Hollywood occult and intelligence. And then you can move up, you know, into the modern world and all the stuff that we've seen recently with all these scandals, the Nexium cult, all that kind of stuff. That also shows the intersection of the intelligence agencies in Hollywood and cults and the mafia. So, I mean, there's just so much there, but the unique thing, you know, that I do in my book is I tie it into the way it's presented in the movies.
Did you ever see and I'm glad you brought up Crowley. Did you ever see that TV series they did? It was a short, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 episode run about Jack Parsons.
I haven't seen it yet. I keep being told I need to see it.
Me too.
But I'll tell you what I did see that relates to that, which is, I don't know if you're a David Lynch Twin Peaks fan, but I'm a big
David Lynch.
I thought you said we were. We talked one time about that.
Yeah.
Well, I did a really long analysis of Twin Peaks in the first book, and then I did a really long analysis of Twin Peaks season 3 and Fire Walk with Me in the new book. And my old analysis came out before Mark Frost wrote his new Twin Peaks book before the show aired, the season 3 aired, and I got everything right. So all of my speculations, it's all about cult. It refers to the Crowley portals. It's all about,
portals into the cube. Come on,
opening these dimensional holes for demons to come through. And Frost in his book, he even cites the Parsons stuff.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. You never cease to amaze me. You never cease to amaze me. I mean that, man. I love it. That's some great connections. Go ahead.
Well, did you notice the hobo demons did you watch season 3 of Twin Peaks?
I watched, I'm actually halfway through. I still have to finish it. I mean, one of the last episodes I saw had, gosh, I can't remember his name now. He's an actor, but he was like a cool motorcycle guy. He was on Michael Cera. That's it. It was
Michael Cera. That was funny. Yeah, it's
so weird. Oh gosh, I mean, David Lynch is the reason I went to film school, really. But then of course, as you wake up and you learn more about him, and I mean, doesn't seem like a bad guy. He's really into the meditation schools and all that stuff. But again, it's not my thing. I think he's a little closer, obviously, to the New World Order type religion and whatnot. Yeah. Right. Which is a bummer, and that's why I've said before in other shows and whatnot, is just I'm interested in the God-given gifts of people. It's just unfortunate what they do with them sometimes. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was just going to point out the gas station where the portal was first opened up in the first episode with the hobo demons, and they're going to come up pretty consistently in the new season that you're watching there. And this is an image of Crowley with a completely hobo demon face, black face, which is exactly what all the hobo demons have. So I speculated that that's a reference to the demonic, basically.
Man, definitely. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think that Lynch is just a conduit for the spirits in that respect? Because, I mean, everything he does is so deep, esoteric, occultic.
Well, he's certainly aware of these Tibetan traditions that he refers to, these ascended master type ideas. He's seen in comparative religion how that relates to Native American spirituality, with that being a big part of, the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks. And then we see, obviously, then in the 3rd season, I don't think have you seen the nuke episode yet?
No.
Okay, that's going to blow your mind. That one's really kind of the wildest episode in the whole season 3. It should be coming up pretty soon. It's around the middle, but you'll see in that episode, you're going to love that, because you're going to notice the overt references to the Parsons stuff, to being out in the desert, the homunculus type stuff, the frog demon. You know how Revelation talks about the frog. Yeah. That's all going to be referenced there. And somebody sent me an interview with David Lynch. I can't remember how old the interview was, but he was saying in the interview that part of the bases for some of this was that he was reading scripture. Wow. So yeah, he's still in all the, like Eastern transcendental meditation stuff.
Right.
He's been reading scripture and looking at these things, and you can tell it when you watch. You'll see what I'm saying when you get to that episode.
It's crazy.
I noticed a frog demon as I read the Bible. Way to go, Coop.
Yeah, him and Katy Perry together did some project with a transcendental meditation a while back as well, and I definitely think TM's going to be a part of that New World Order kind of. Spirituality. There was also a movie way back. I did a video on, of all people, it was Matt Damon and Ben Affleck when their connection with the CIA. This is years ago. But even The Good Shepherd, which is a movie from, probably 2005 or so.
Yeah.
And that had Matt Damon becoming a CIA agent and how he had to become a Freemason and all that. If you saw that.
Yeah, that's based on the real history of the OSS, how the OSS started with Bill Donovan and the British intelligence agents that actually helped set up the OSS, like Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming was heavily involved in that. William Stevenson, British intelligence in Canada, was involved in that. And it springs out of obviously Yale University. So the scenes at the beginning of Good Shepherd are quite literally real, you know, skull and bones initiation scenes. I mean, that's where the term spook comes from, is the people who were initiated at Yale into skull and bones. So that's the origins of the OSS. That's the origins of essentially our global elite in America. You know, that's where they principally have recruited people for intelligence work. But you're absolutely right to point out that the other people in the film aren't just playing roles. I think, yeah, you can definitely make an easily provable case that Matt Damon probably has CIA connection, no doubt. George Clooney, no doubt, in my mind, he does.
Oh yeah, the men with goats, hysteric goats, right there. That was one, you know.
And the Jolie, when she was training for SALT,
yeah,
she was given a CIA handler. They even said that it's her handler to train her and teach her all this. And then she goes into being in the CFR. So absolutely, these people are in the CIA. There's no question about it. I'm glad you mentioned Affleck too. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, his role in Argo, come on, that's telling you everything.
Argo, exactly. Syria. Yeah, man. I'm glad you mentioned SALT, because that's another thing. That's a genre we see, is all these women who basically seem normal at first, and then through whatever process become these assassins. You've got Red Sparrow. You've got the Peppermint movie that's had with
Red Sparrow, great one.
Right, SALT. I mean, La Femme Nikita, which was incredible. The one with Bridget Fonda is by far my favorite. I know it's not the original.
Yeah, it's really goofy. You're talking about Point of No Return.
A Point of No Return. Yeah, that was totally over the top, but like the fight on the side of Hollywood Hills at the end with the car wheel.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And then what's the one with Gina Davis that Shane Black wrote?
Oh, that was a big one, and that had 9/11 references.
It did, and it's got Samuel L. Jackson, and she's traumatized. She's been through trauma-based mind control, and she has a split. One of which is the slutty assassin, and then the other is the you know, homemaker.
Oh yeah, well, didn't you do I know you've done a bit on American Ultra. What'd you think of that film?
Yeah, I decided I had to narrow it down. So like a big section of the new book, maybe 80, 100 pages is MKUltra, Hollywood MKUltra. So I had to pick, because there's so many, you're limited in space, but I picked Hollywood Mind Control. There's a chapter on LSD and the CIA. I picked Clockwork Orange, They Live, Lost Boys, American Ultra, The Cell, and Neon Demon.
Oh, I want to hear about the Neon Demon and Lost Boys myself, but I feel like you just gave me an assortment of candies and I get to choose. But go ahead.
Well, which candy dost thou choose? Which pill do you choose?
Gosh, I mean, you know, obviously I want to hear all of it, but you covered so much in your new book. I mean, I saw that it's on the way, and I can't wait to. That's the thing, guys. I haven't even had a chance to read it myself. He's been kind enough to send me a copy, and I can't wait to see it. So we're hearing stuff like at the same time right now, you know, which is awesome. Gosh, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess we already pretty much covered the CIA stuff and the connected with, you know, whatever.
Well, I put Stranger Things is in here. That has, you know, a lot of overt mind control references.
Big time. Yeah, go ahead with some Stranger Things for the people, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm sure everybody's probably aware of like the more obvious, like it references, you know, the kid being mind control. But I also tied that into Gnostic stuff, because they make her handler guy who's abused her she makes all these weird references to daddy and father, and he's this stand-in father. So I read it as like a Luciferian, like it's an anti-God the Father thing, and she represents this rising feminist spirit. So even though it's telling you a lot about MKUltra and handlers and all that, that's real, it's spinning it in this way that's trying to make her feminist. And so that was my suspicion, and that's how I wrote my analysis. And then when season 2 of Stranger Things came out, they made that completely obvious. It's totally, when she goes off with the punks, she becomes this like feminist thing, and it's all about feminist rebellion. So, you know, you notice this a lot with the shows will start out really cool, and it's like, wow, they're putting all this, you know, red pill stuff in there. Oh, and then they steer it off into like this feminist type thing. But I still enjoyed Stranger Things, even though it kind of had that feminist turn to it. But
Me too. Me too. I feel you. I mean, same way. I can separate it. Like, I mean, I see the agenda, the subliminals, the symbols. I get it. But I still try to appreciate the writers and the actors.
Well, Lost Boys. Nobody noticed this, but do you remember in Lost Boys? There's this scene at the beginning where they go to a billboard of missing children.
No.
And look what's right there on the billboard.
Oh, it's the pedo symbol.
Yep, it is. So I argued that the coven in Lost Boys is not just a coven. Like, it's actually about predatory occult covens.
Wow, that's a good one.
Do you remember the plot? Has it been a while since you've seen it?
I remember I loved it. That's one of those I saw, as a young man that was just, it's right up there with They Live, for me. It was just so awesome. They were in Santa Monica, I think, or something like that. And it was a older brother, younger brother. And
it's a fictional town, Santa. It's roughly like that. And they say, oh, it's the murder capital of the world. Santa, what do they call it? Santa Carla is the made up town. But it's probably something like that. And then why is it the murder capital? Oh, because of the vampires. Well, who are the vampires? Well, they're the parasitical occult elite. That's the real vampires.
Oh, that's true.
And so that's roughly the route that I take with analyzing it. And of all sites, Vice wrote, they cited me. I couldn't believe it that they cited me. There's some girl at Vice basically literally rewrote my analysis and then linked she linked me. I thought it was so weird. It's like, because most of the time if somebody rips off what you wrote, they don't link you, but she at least linked me, but she basically just rewrote my article. So even Vice has kind of noticed, hey, there's some weird stuff going on with the movie Lost Boys there.
That's interesting. Yeah, Vice of all places. I mean, all that's changing too, though. It really is. I mean, media, everything's changing quickly. It's incredible. That's where people like ourselves and other people out there, independents, coming up and sharing their voice is so important.
And Lost Boys, that's Peter Pan. J.M. Barrie had all the weird pedo type accusations going on there, which I'm probably true. I don't know the history of the Peter Pan dude, but it obviously has just something creeper about Peter Pan to me.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Just the connection to Pan, the little thing itself. Exactly. While you were doing your newest book, what was the wildest thing you discovered? What was the one thing that really stands out in your mind is like, wow, I did not see that coming?
Two things come to mind that really kind of blew me away, which are a little bizarre. So there's a section of the new book on geoengineering, weather control type stuff. And I mean, we've all kind of in the alternative circles of media and whatnot, we've known about this for a long time, but I decided to go back and watch some older movies that have that theme, because I thought, well, if I'm going to write on that, I need to review these, because I thought, well, I can think of some movies that, like Dune has references to weather control, and so I went back and did that, David Lynch's Dune. So I stuck that in here. But what kind of blew me away was the goofy movie Avengers. Did you ever see the flop with Ray Fine and Uma Thurman and Sean Connery, the Avengers?
Oh, man, I couldn't even finish that. I remember what you're talking about, though. Yeah, because I liked the movie that was called The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
remember that?
It has a square and compass in it.
Oh, that film was filled with symbols. But I dug that, and I thought that this movie would be the same, and I was way wrong. I hated that, actually. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of the. It has Razzie Awards. It's notoriously. But when I went back and watched it, what blew me away was the fact that not only does the Sean Connery character, what's his name? It's a reference from The Tempest. He's called like Sir August something. But so he plays the architect of the weather control, and he's this high level Scottish lord. So he's like the Scottish Rite. And I started noticing, hey, Sean Connery always plays this like high level Freemason type role. And if you've seen the man who would be king, then you know that
Oh yeah,
because he plays the high level Mason and who tries to present himself as a god, right? So then I started thinking, well, wait a minute. Did you know that he was supposed to play the great architect in the Mason in the Matrix?
No way. That's incredible, man. If you guys, for the audience, if you haven't seen that, what's the famous quote, man? It's like, in the world of the blind, the man with one eye is king. Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
It's Rudyard Kipling's story, The Man Who Would Be King, and then the movie is I mean, it's overtly Masonic. Like these guys who are in the lodge basically end up hiking in the Himalayas or something. They find some old tribe, and they basically con this tribe into thinking that they're the long lost descendants of Alexander the Great and that they're divine.
Yeah.
And so they're just con men, and the idea here being that Masonry in one aspect is a means by which you can learn the arts of duping people and be a con man's savior, basically. He claims to be the son of God. So they view Jesus as kind of like this master con man who was just really teaching people how to trick people into starting their own cult or whatever. And so anyway, but I won't spoil the movie, but it's insightful from that perspective, The Man Who Would Be King. And then so he's kind of acting like in the same sort of high level Scottish Rite type role. And long story short is that he has these very advanced geoengineering weather control technologies that he's threatening to basically unleash on the nations. I think that essentially does exist. And not only that, but the Uma Thurman character is literally an MKUltra assassin in the film. And she's even spoken of as sort of traumatized, and this was done to her. There's a lot of weird, like she wears a giant bear suit, like a pedo bear type suit, just really weird stuff in this B movie. And sometimes I like to throw in the B movies, like I put Labyrinth. Oh, it's not B, but goofy movies. I put Labyrinth and Legend in the first book, and then in this book, I put Point Break and I put The Avengers. So sometimes I'll throw some bad ones in the mix.
Yeah, Legend's great. I love Legend.
Yeah, and that's all about like weird sex magic in nature. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, man. Sheesh. Back before we thought he was kooky, that's back when I remember seeing Legend, and that's back when he was still cool. It's back as a little kid. I was like, I'd like to grow up to be a Tom Cruise someday. I thought, then you get older and you're just like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, he's like, and then like right after Legend, he's mixing drinks for Elizabeth Shue and Cocktail, and they're going off to the Bahamas and, at a tiki bar. So yeah, so he had this very yuppie, cool image going on throughout the 80s. And then what was that racing movie where him and Nicole Kidman, where he's like the NASCAR dude. And then it turns into it ends up being like Eyes Wide Shut by 1999 or whatever.
I'm going to bounce back to another subject. We're talking about Sean Connery in that movie, The Avengers, but did you ever see The Kingsman?
Yes. I did an analysis of the first Kingsman, but I haven't seen the second one. But yeah, that analysis got a lot of traction from that. I wrote analysis the day it came out, and it's all about basically British intelligence and mind control, how they traumatize the agents. A lot of that's true. A lot of that's true.
The dog scene.
Kill the dog. Yeah. Traumatize the kid. And then basically make them into psychopaths. And that's what you see with Bond, of course. But that's true. Like they really do try to weed out of you any morals, any taboos to make you a fit killing machine. Because that's essentially what that kind of character is supposed to be. Not everybody in intelligence is an assassin, but that role is sometimes needed. So
what did you think about the extended, like almost 10-minute long scene of him going haywire and like killing all those people in that church?
Yeah. And with my connection froze for a second. Then you have the Samuel L. Jackson with the mind control through the signals in the phones. So yeah, I talked about that in my new book too. With the weather control section also has a section on like signals and that kind of stuff.
And do you remember that scene where, again, it was like about maybe it was less than 10 minutes, but it was the agent just going nuts and killing people in the church?
Killing, yeah.
that's, again, to me, that felt like some major kind of programming. I mean,
Predictive
so
programming.
ultra violent, man. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but I mean, it's small town church, and Samuel L. Jackson sets off the mind control,
Yep.
whatever, on this agent, and he just goes haywire and starts killing everyone in this small country church. And they're all people like that, I grew up seeing in my parents' church, like in Oklahoma. It's like just, middle of nowhere country type folk, right? And I mean, this dude's like twisting their heads around, freaking, slitting their necks, shooting them in the face. I mean, and it's like almost 10 minutes worth of just straight up violence against people in this church.
Yeah, exactly. And do you remember other people who have called themselves Templars who supposedly went on sprees? I don't want to trigger the AI, but in recent events, there was a guy who said he was a high-level Masonic Templar, and he engaged in an event. His name rhymes with Ganders Gravik.
Oh, no way. Okay. Oh, you're right. Okay. I remember that. That was out in, like not Iceland, but some Norway. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. They had all the images of him and his, regalia, his garb. So much of that, I just did a video recently. I included a clip from Nicholas Cruz talking about the demons in his head, and he kept punching himself in the face, and we can wonder, is that is it really something spiritual, or could it be like the Navy Yard shooter who a week before he did the shooting was saying he heard them talking in his head and people were controlling him?
Could be either one. I mean, we know the voice to skull technology is real. You watch YouTube videos of local news clips on it even.
Right. That's something, man. What did you think about I'm looking now at the contents again here of the book, so I want to ask you a question about some of it here. You already got Ninth Gate covered, which, in fact, just kind of bouncing off Ninth Gate. What do you think about Johnny Depp, man? Like, to me, he's a guy who's so filled with demonic, wicked energy that he's like falling apart or something. I mean, what do you think about this one?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sad to see anybody, having problems like that, and then it even spills over into your physical health. You know what I mean? And I don't know exactly what's going on with him, but people have been kind of calling attention to this online with him looking unhealthy and whatnot. But I remember right when I first started blogging, it was about 10 years ago, and I got the idea to start doing like esoteric Hollywood type analysis of movies. And one of the first posts I had was a post about him and Marilyn Manson hanging out, talking about how into chaos magic they were. So there's no speculation that he's had these interests, and I don't know Johnny Depp, never met him, but I met a person who claimed to know him and was in his, I don't know how true that was, but they were talking about the occult a lot, this supposed person who knew him or whatever. But so I don't know how much I count that evidence, but I mean, it's not, it seems to go pretty easily with the circles that he was in, like, and I know a lot of people say, oh, Marilyn Manson's just a, entertainer or whatever. Well, actually, in his biography or whatever, he claims to have actually done the abortion for Satan.
Right. And he's a Mason, admittedly. Yeah, he's a Mason as well.
So just because somebody is like an entertainer or showman, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of their, occult beliefs are necessarily fake. You know what I mean? It's not always this. They could be both.
I've wondered a lot about Terry Gilliam, of all people, because I've always loved his creativity. I saw Brazil again a while back. I mean, not a great
film. I mean, to do Brazil. It's totally Gnostic.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, it's just, wow. So, to me, these are just more of these, they're talented Masons, and
that's why I put Time Bandits in the new book, because it's 100% Gnostic worldview. Because I assume you've seen, Sean Connery, there he is again.
Yeah.
Time traveling as I think he's King Midas. He's not Alexander, but he's here he is in another Masonic movie. Yeah, totally. And
I haven't seen that in probably like 15 years, but I loved it.
Oh man, yeah. Read my analysis and go watch it. You'll be like,
okay, will do.
Because it's all about. Do you remember how Labyrinth with Jennifer Connelly? That was about like her journey back into her unconscious, and I don't know. That's my take on it, right?
I got it. Yeah.
This is the same thing. That kid is not just going back in time. He's actually going down, and deeper into like his inner world and the associations that he's making in his inner world, trying to understand the external world. It's the exact same story. This is the descent story. Virgil, right, going into Hades and all that with the Inferno, same type of story. In every one of the great myths, whether it's Homer, Iliad, or whatever, Virgil in the Aeneid, book 6, they have a descent, so they have to go to the underworld. That isn't just about hell. It's also, they're all the same. Like the descent into the inner man, and then down into the unconscious. That's where the demonic intersects with the individual. That's how possession occurs too. So another example of this is if you watch the movie, the John Carpenter movie, In the Mouth of Madness, he portrays that. Great. He portrays that by the author who, when he reaches the abyss where Cthulhu and the demons are coming through, it's his inner subconscious. We see that same presentation in The Cell when J-Lo goes into the mind of the serial killer. She has to basically descend into his unconscious to where the trauma took place, which is essentially the abyss, right?
I'm loving you brought up The Cell. I just noticed that here on your in the glossary or whatever. But yeah, what a great one, man. Please continue. That's interesting.
So yeah, I was just going to make the point that that's another theme that I talk about in the book is the inner descent to interacting with these sort of spiritual entities, whether it's The Cell or whether it's and I did a video on In the Mouth of Madness, but it's not in the book. But Time Bandits, Labyrinth, The Cell, they all have that theme of the inner descent to and how it connects to the external world.
Did you read they're doing a sequel to Labyrinth?
Well, I heard a sequel to Dark Crystal. Is there a Labyrinth?
Crystal? Sorry, that's what I'm thinking of.
No, okay. It's okay. And actually, I did a Dark Crystal in it, which is super Luciferian Gnostic.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. They capture the Skeksis are like the elite. They capture the Gelflings and they torture them to sap the energy that they inject. So it's like the adrenochrome.
Oh, good one. Yeah, that's a good catch, man. I mean, here's one. Also. Go ahead.
And then the way Dark Crystal ends is that the peace-loving mystics, when the astrological signs unite, when they unite, it's a pyramid with an all-seeing eye in it, because they unite in a triangle.
Isn't that something?
And then what happens is the good mystics, they meld with the evil Skeksis. So good and evil are exactly the same. You only see that when you see the eye in the pyramid. That's how the movie, I was like, holy crap, dude, this is how Dark Crystal ends.
Gosh, see, I haven't seen it forever. I need to watch that again now. Thanks for reminding me, man. Wow. There it is, guys. I mean, seriously, Beast System straight up. I mean,
yeah, dude, I think Jim Henson, man, he was like a mega Kabbalist, dude. If you watch Labyrinth, then you see Labyrinth from that perspective. It's like, oh yeah, it's not just Kabbalism. It's Sarah's descent into her inner associations, in her inner psyche, her archetypes. It's really a spiritual realm, and she's actually interacting with this stuff, and it's her way of associating things in the external world because she's having problems at home. And you're watching this in a spiritual way, and it also has all the mind control type stuff with David Bowie's kind of like her handler. He's like this weird mind control,
right?
Occult, and he's an occultist. He's described as a witch in the movie.
Let me ask you this: do you remember there was a funeral? It was a famous funeral in Hollywood several years ago, and it was a guy that was called the Hollywood Kabbalist. He was like this famous Hollywood Kabbalist. Are you familiar with this?
Not beyond like the Kabbalah Center with Madonna, no.
Okay, you can look this up, guys, if you want. I looked this up myself. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but you can look up a video of Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. I guess they're a couple or something. Again, I don't know. Access Hollywood, folks. Here we go. But I mean, I think they're a couple, but they were at this funeral of this famous Hollywood Kabbalist. So I looked this guy up. This is like several weeks ago, and started reading a lot of what he was saying. And there's tons of Hollywood people that were going to this guy's, seminars and, whatever. But I didn't realize how big they were into reincarnation. Like that was a big push of his, is reincarnation.
Do you want to hear my David Bowie? Can you see my David Bowie? He's there drawing the Sephirot of the Kabbalah.
Oh, wow. You're right.
David Bowie's drawing the Kabbalah.
Look at that. The Sephiroth. Exactly.
Yeah. And so that was in so obviously, yeah, he's hanging out with, you know, Jim Henson. And then in the new one, I put, do you know he sings about the Golden Dawn? You heard that?
Right.
Yeah. So he was all into this. And then I've got a picture here of when he was in his Golden Dawn phase, like he would dress up like Pharaoh. He's such a weird dude. Anyway, there's some Pharaoh picture of him I've got in here somewhere.
I think I remember seeing that.
You've probably seen it, but yeah.
What do you think? Now, we'll jump around a little bit here too, as well. And if there's anything you want to kind of just cover in general, then feel free to just throw it out there. But I always love just bouncing stuff off you, Jay. It's always fun talking to you, man, because we can talk about anything.
Yeah, dude.
In the book, though, section 1, Hollywood terror dialectics. Is that kind of what I think it is about the programming through horror films, or what do you think?
Well, what I wanted to do there was talk about dialectics, because I talk about dialectics a lot. So we're all familiar with, you know, the control left-right paradigm, and that's just a version of dialectics. And if you know about Marxism, the whole entirety of Marxism is based on dialectics. It's based on class warfare. If we clash groups together, then it causes, quote, progress. It causes evolution, right? Evolution is based on the same principle of dialectics, right? And so I wanted to show how Hollywood portrayed dialectics in film. So okay. I picked out
NLP included in this. Sorry,
it could be, but in my examples, I didn't pick any examples of NLP. I basically just took like examples of how Hollywood's portrayed terrorists. So, for example, if you saw Iron Man 3, then you know that they showed Bin Laden basically being this tool, this actor character, right? So, yeah, Ben Kingsley plays this, who's a tool of a deeper shadow government type entity.
Right, like when Iron Man approached him, he was like partying in Hollywood or something, right?
Yeah, he's an actor.
Right,
so,
he's an actor.
And he was obviously portrayed as a Bin Laden type character, even though he's the Mandarin. He's just a generic sort of Eurasian villain. But I wanted to highlight too, like with James Bond, you can see there you've got Timothy Dalton in the 1987 Living Daylights. He's riding around with the Mujahideen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the what would become Al Qaeda, basically. So even as late as the 80s, whether it's Rambo 2 or whether it's Living Daylights, James Bond with Timothy Dalton, they were still presenting the Mujahideen, Al Qaeda as the heroes. And I've got, you know, like there's the Mujahideen in the White House, right? Like hanging out with Reagan. So at that time they were good guys, and then a few years later they're the great terror villain. So I just wanted to point out how in the portrayal of terrorists in Hollywood, it's a very back and forth kind of thing, good guy, bad guy relationship. I
want to jump this in real quick. Then, do you remember there was an interview an actor did like over 10 years ago, and he was one of the what is it, the Four Horsemen or something? It was an X-Files. He's one of the conspiracy guys. Do you remember this story?
Dean Haglund, where he says that the CIA would be on set on the X-Files.
That's it. So for the audience, if you haven't heard yet, and it was like what was it? What was the name of his group? The Four Horsemen? The
Lone Gunmen.
Thank you. Okay, the Lone Gunmen. It was like these three geeky conspiracy guys Mulder would always go to, and every now and then kind of like get a little help from.
Yeah.
And one of the actors in real life, Dean, did an interview with, I believe, Alex Jones. Like, I mean, it's 15, maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, yeah.
And he said that the CIA literally showed up on set with Chris Carter, the creator of X-Files, and would talk to him about episodes. And one of the episodes they led him to make was an episode where there was a plane hijacked, literally flying towards the Twin Towers before 9/11 ever happened. And they were going to blame it on the Muslims, quote unquote. And this was in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So in case now, we know this and known it for years, guys like Jay and I, but a lot of you didn't know this. So again, it just goes to show you, I mean, there really is that connection, and we really are being programmed.
If we pay attention, it's oftentimes in the film. So for example, one of the things I mentioned was True Lies. which the reason it's relevant is because this was 94, and it's the first blockbuster. Now, other people have argued with me and pointed out that, oh no, Back to the Future had the Lebanese terrorists. I'm not talking about the presence of a terrorist in movies. That's existed for a long time, but major blockbusters where that's the central aspect of the plot. It looks to me like it was True Lies with Arnold. And then that's the first sort of prepping you for, you know, the coming age of the Arab terrorists, because prior to this, Hollywood was always talking about the Cold War and the Marxists, which I believe it was actually a lot of the foundations in America, the Carnegies, the Ford, Rockefeller Foundation, that was supporting the Marxists in America, because David Rockefeller wrote, you know, From a China Traveler, 1979, the editorial for the New York Times, where he praised Mao Zedong. He said, hey, he loved communism, he loves Marxism, he loves Maoism. And he talks about it in his memoirs too, that he was the one who went over to China, who set up the Chase Bank in China. And so I view Marxism as part of the dialectic, basically controlled by these oligarchs. Point being is there's that presentation is in Hollywood throughout the Cold War period, where they were using a lot of movies to make everybody think that the threat was over in Moscow somewhere, when actually I think the threat was the elite that are international. It's not some country. They just play the countries off against one another.
Right.
It's an international Illuminati, basically. I don't have a problem using that term. So I talked about everything in that section. I talk about first the mob and how the mob played into that. And then I talk about the Cold War with the Reds and the Red Scare in Hollywood, and how that was all propped up on purpose. I mentioned Red Sparrow too, like you talked about, and her being basically mind controlled to become, you know, this sex operative bed. So I mean, people don't
programming, really.
Yeah, dude. People think the sex kitten stuff is not real. It's absolutely real. And they show you movies of how the intelligence agencies train the hose.
There's a new TV show coming out, which I'm going to watch just because I'm curious of this stuff. But it's a Lindsay Lohan, where she's overseas somewhere and she's running some kind of resort. But I'm always reminded of a story, and I've shown this in past videos. It was a news story, like a TMZ type thing, where Lindsay Lohan went to a party one night with Lady Gaga and Katy Perry, I believe it was. And the next day, they were filming her outside of the hotel, and they were looking at the back of her head, and there was a huge clump of hair had been ripped right out of her head. Like, she looked injured, literally had a bald spot, and that she looked like she'd been crying. And I can't help it, but I'm pulled to these stories, because again, it goes to show to me that these people are victims most of the time. You know, there's literally rituals and whatnot taking place, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of those girls, they probably get used for high level. There's been some evidence,
prostitution too, I'm sure.
Well, but blackmail, right? So like if you want to get dirt on people, and that's what she does in Red Sparrow. That's what's so crazy, is that they send her as a sex operative, as a swallow, to blackmail these, you know, people that are high level or whatever. And, you know, people will pay a lot of money. If you wanted to sleep with your Hollywood favorite chick, I mean, there's a lot of money that could be made there, right? So it's not just a money game at all. It also can be getting dirt, getting information, right? I mean, if you know, you're sleeping with, and that's also part of what she does in Red Sparrow. She's not just sleeping with the people, she's also like trying to figure out, like, you know, what are you up to, by the way?
Isn't that weird that she wound up dating Darren Aronofsky, still is, and they made Mother, and how Gnostic Mother was?
It is, yeah. And then the stuff that comes out about like Weinstein and Jennifer.
Right. And the fappening, people forget the fappening. I remember like several years ago, 4 years ago, I think now or so. And there was this big, you know, leak of sexy images of Hollywood actresses, and Jennifer, what's her name, was one of them, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to keep in mind the blackmail side of that too. So that's always part of it.
Right. Well, okay. Huh? Sorry, man, but what did you think about, speaking of blackmail, what did you think about that Kevin Spacey video he did where he's drinking the cup from, you know, England or whatever? I mean, what did you think about?
What to make of that? You've all judged me. You've all thought I was evil, but you didn't see the evidence. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what?
I know.
I don't know what it meant. Like you, I mean, I watched it. I heard other people's analysis of it, and people saying, "Oh, it's a threat." Now, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Same thing. Yeah, those aren't things I put a lot of energy into because it really has to just come down to speculation with some of that kind of stuff. But you know, even that whole movement in Hollywood's interesting. I mean, most of these women who are standing up for Me Too and all that have been seen making these so-called Illuminati poses, all-seeing eye. Rose McGowan, huge, do all this stuff. So to me, it's just another part of the agenda in one way or the other. However, I am glad to see, you know, if there's a perv out there nowadays, I mean, bust him. But if you did something 20 years ago, like, you know, you grabbed a girl's boobie or something, I mean, I say let it ride, but that's me. You know, if it was a long time ago, it's like, come on, guys, right?
Yeah, and I tend to think a lot of that was just to deflect from like the real abuse stories, you know, to
Exactly. Yeah, look at all the stuff coming out. And
I mean, what's worse, like raping kids or grabbing some chick's butt, you know what I mean?
right.
Like, come on.
And some people would argue that goes back to the whole wall thing as well, because, you know, is he truly aware enough, Trump, to be attacking, you know, people being bought and sold? I mean, is he aware? Is that a part of this or not? I don't know. I mean, people push that Q thing on me a lot. No offense to my friends out there that watch the show and are into that, but I'm not into the Q thing myself. I don't trust groups like that. These kind of mystical, magical.
This is a weird trend, you know, ever since WikiLeaks and Snowden, and then the Pentagon. Well, it goes back, I guess, to the Pentagon Papers, and then the modern versions, and with WikiLeaks, Snowden, Panama Papers. But what we noticed with Panama Papers is that they started being targeted leak engines. So those were directed just at Putin. The leaks with WikiLeaks have kind of been directed at multiple people at different times. Then we just had the integrity leaks, which seemed to be legit because they show that the establishment was colluding to put out fake stories about Russia and Russiagate. That was all vindicated, admitted to be real. The Democratic Party leaks, that was all real right around the time of the election. And then now we've got the 9/11 pay us Bitcoin leaks and Q. So the trend is like limited hangout leak engines, some of which are true, some of which are not. It's hard to tell. Maybe at times, you know, different groups, anonymous, right? So and they can be cutouts, you know what I mean? Like any group could just say, you know, it could be the intelligence agency of one country using anonymous as a cutout to put something out. It could be, you know, real hackers doing it. There's a lot of different possibilities. So there's no, you know, one size fits all answer to these things.
No, man, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate you throwing your 2 cents in as well. It's like same thing with Anonymous and all this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't get behind it. And I think that to do the kind of things you and I do and to use the kind of, I believe, spiritual gifts we have, you know, a large part of that for me is really not trusting a lot of people. I can't help it, you know.
Well, we've been doing this for a while. So what happens is you get to a little more wisdom about going about just not hopping on something. You're a little more hesitant. You've seen people get burned and taken for a ride in the past. So we're more hesitant about waiting and seeing what the fruits are of something, because most of the time it becomes evident within time whether something's legit or fake.
So true. Remember the Isaac Cappy thing that was happening a few months ago?
Yeah.
Were
Yeah, I didn't jump on Flat Earth. I didn't jump on
Same.
Cappy. I didn't jump on
Mandela effect.
Mandela effect. I mean, I think it's fun to talk about. You can talk about that, but a lot of people they're not hip to the fact that, you know, if you've been doing this for a long time, you've seen people jump on bandwagons and get burned.
Oh, totally. I mean, I get so many comments, like so many of these, I'm unsubbing, you know, from flat earth people, Mandela effect people. And, you know, you never discuss the real issues, flat earth and Mandela effect, you know, and it's just, what can I do? You know, I mean, I don't like fighting with people and whatnot. And I try to be cool and have your own thoughts and feelings, but we're living at a time where if the truth is coming out, because we're in a so-called apocalypse, then you better know that deception is going to be 100%. And it's hard to tell what's real and what's not sometimes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it really does take a lot of discernment. Definitely in this period, discernment is a spiritual gift, and also just common sense experience. You know what I mean? Like what's more likely, you know, that there's a CERN unleashed a alternative reality that they knew how to go back in time and change the spelling of words? Or is it more likely that that's probably some kind of made up thing or psyop? You know what I mean? Like,
Totally,
it's less
yeah.
likely to me that if I had the ability to create alternate dimensions and shift things, and I'm going to mess with with prepositional phrases on the covers of DVD boxes. You know, like there's much more.
Exactly. Now that's the thing too, is I do believe there's some interesting things with CERN. I even thought of doing a new video soon talking about CERN a little bit, you know, and
I
piercing
think
the
it's
veil.
definitely worth looking at. There's, you know, they dance around in Masonic garb, but that doesn't mean a Mandela effect's true.
Right, I'm with you. Like, the Mandela effect bothers me, and people saying the Bible's being changed, and
Yeah.
I feel it's another transvestigation, kind of a psyop type thing as well. You know, so and that's just the way I see it. I want to throw this one at you as well, because this is really random, and this is aging us probably a bit, but I love this movie, and I saw that you did a chapter on this, but the movie Clue. What about Clue?
Yeah, Clue kind of blew me away when I revisited it, because it's about the Cold War, Hollywood Cold War, and Hollywood Cold War dialectics. And so, like I was talking about earlier with like Rockefeller and Western oligarch money bankers supporting communism, I think that's crucial to understand. If you understand that, you're not going to be duped into buying into the dialectics. And that doesn't mean Marxism's good. I believe both Marxism and modern capitalism, crony capitalism, essentially are atheistic in their foundations. They're both just as bad. And you can see at the top, it's the same people. The top capitalists love Marxism, and they've always supported it and fostered it. So the middle level people, you know, spies in the Cold War and academics, you know, they're busy fighting it out and spying on Soviets and Soviet spying. But at the top, you've got like Victor Rothschild, who's essentially British intelligence, and he's KGB, and he's giving information to the KGB. I did an interview with a guy who translated some of the history of Victor Rothschild. It's pretty fascinating in that regard. If you look at Professor Anthony Sutton, you know, he talks about how the West basically built up the Soviet Union. So the Cold War was an intentional dialectic, I believe. And what blew me away was when I went back and watched Clue, it's set during the Hollywood Cold War dialectic. And they talk about it that way. It kind of blew me away that they talk about it that way. So if you're not familiar with Tragedy and Hope, I did a lot of lecture talks a couple years ago on the totality of Tragedy and Hope, which is like 1,300-page book about the Western establishment's CFR perspective. So it's written from the vantage point of basically an archivist for the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, and he gives their perspective. He's an apologist for the Council for the New World Order, basically. So he is who I think is the best way to understand the Cold War and the Hollywood 10, when, you know, Bogart and Katharine Hepburn and Lauren Bacall were being called in as like the Marxists who were subverting America and all this stuff. And you start to realize that a lot of this was propped up by Hollywood. Meanwhile, I mean, the threat being the actual Communist Party. The real threat was, as Quigley says, the global oligarchs like Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford. At the Reese Committee hearings, the Reese Committee found that those billionaire oligarchs were actually funding all of this leftism, all this atheism in American schools. So
Great info, man. I love
it wasn't you know, the KGB. The KGB played a minor role in that kind of stuff because they didn't have the ability and the power to do all of this. But the billionaire oligarchs, they had a lot of power, and they had the ability to build up these perceived rivals like Moscow, KGB, all that kind of stuff. So I see basically the red threat like the Bin Laden type threat, like the terror threat. I see it as a managed dialectic.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I mean, what are your feelings on straight up just Putin? What do you think if you could meet him just in some room for like 5-10 minutes and just bullshit with the guy? I mean, what do you think his deal is? Do you think he's you know, is he a clone? Is he a robot? I mean, But for real, like, do you think he's a good guy? Is he fighting the New World Order? A lot of people believe that Russia's fighting the New World Order. I see that idea out there.
I think there's a degree to which that's true. I wouldn't put a lot of hope in any actual government figures. I mean, I think anybody in the government role of that level, they kind of have to make compromises. So I view Putin kind of like Trump. Like, maybe he does good things, maybe he does bad things. I don't profess to know what really goes on, in the inner core, but I do know that a lot of people who do analyze this pretty consistently, you pretty much have like there's a fifth column in Russia that really wants Russia to be integrated into the globalist New World Order scheme. And that's real. That is very real. That's why the Carnegie Endowment has their think tanks. Soros had his think tanks. Actually, Putin has been booting Soros think tanks out of Russia. That's all very real. Putin did get rid of and arrest certain oligarchs. Doesn't mean Putin's an angel, but there is a degree to which that's real. Other people have called attention to compromises that Putin has made, but I think anybody in a presidential role in major geopolitics has to make compromises. So my view about Russia or countries like that is that they're kind of the last areas that the New World Order wants to mop up to integrate them into this system. So the revival of Orthodox Christianity in Russia is very real, but that doesn't mean that the entire government apparatus or the people in power are always the good guys. There's a lot of corrupt people there, just like in America. There's a lot of legitimate anti-globalist sentiment, but at the power structure level, there's just a lot of corruption.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love it. I mean, that's that's all good. And is there anything specifically?
By the way, did you see the head of the Russian church?
Oh,
that he come out and said that watch out for your smartphones as the beast system.
Yes, yeah, isn't that great?
It's almost like maybe he watches scariest movie ever.
Let's hope so. But yeah, I thought that was great. I think I may have talked about it. If not, it'll be this week. But yeah, man. I mean, it's it's such a weird life this is. It really is, because you and I both, we've been covering this kind of stuff for so many years. We know that we're right about a lot of things. It's not like I'm trying to predict the future, or you are either, but we're aware of things and we tell people. And even sometimes when it's so obviously put right in my face, I still get surprised sometimes. It's like, wow, we really are on to this, man, and it really is manifesting. And it's, like I said, though, I am excited by it. I don't get scared anymore by things or whatever. I think it's fantastic. I don't know where it's all going to lead. It could all be the rapture stuff or whatever, or maybe we go on in the 20, 30 years. I learned a really important lesson with the Trump, him becoming president, because honestly, I never saw that coming. I totally thought that it was going to be Hillary, and then we were basically going to be done. I mean, being honest. So, and I'm glad that happened. So I try to keep a bit more of an open mind, to the possibilities.
Well, that kind of ties in with the question you asked about what things was I most surprised in. And I forgot to mention the second one, which was Metropolis. I mean, everybody knows about probably Metropolis, the film, but what's so crazy about Metropolis is that in 1927, they've got an inverted pentagram in the creation of an AI sex bot. That blows my mind. That is crazy.
I did a music video with all that stuff. It's on the website, but same thing. You're right. From 1927, it showed that combination of science and Satanism, and that's literally what the so-called Illuminati is right now. We're seeing it with transhumanism and all the trans agenda.
And in 2019, I recently, I don't know if you saw the biggest vegan YouTuber. We did a debate.
I saw that. I didn't see it, but I saw the title. Go ahead.
It's not even it's so absurd. It just went insane. It's not even really a debate, but Vegan Gains is the big vegan YouTuber, and his buddy was Ask Yourself. And then it was me and Primal Edge. His channel was Primal Edge Health. And then, so we did a kind of like a double debate there, but it wasn't even a debate. It was just so crazy. But the reason I bring it up is because all the media outlets, they're pushing that this is the year of the vegan. So 2019 is the Economist, and it's the year of the vegan. It's the vegan green agenda year. And this is all part of the social engineering smart cities cult stuff that you're talking about with your coming video. It's not just like the AI God and all that. They're also going to try to control everything that we eat, and they want us into this green earth worship vegan cult. That's going to be a big part of it.
Jay, I don't know if you knew this, but for real, man, like about a month and a half ago, I switched to a full-on plant-based diet, and it's all because I had the heart attack, and I was doing keto, and my blood sugar was low, but my cholesterol was like 500. So I changed everything. Now I honestly, I had some meat on New Year's Eve, and that's it. Like I had a steak, but I mean, I've been away from it, straight plant-based. And then I feel you. I've seen a lot of these stories popping out, more things about the vegan and the vegetarian. And I know there's an agenda there. And I'm like, oh, great. Like I've fallen into the agenda perfectly,
Well, different people have different metabolisms. So I don't think that there's necessarily one diet size that fits all. I mean, and different genetic groupings of people actually can and can't process things the same. Like some genetic groups don't process milk very well. Everybody knows about American Indians and alcohol. They don't process that very well.
Oh, dude, totally. And also, I'm not real hardcore. Like even on New Year's, we had dinner with the family and all that stuff, and they had some meat, and they're walking all like coy next to me, like, "Is this okay?" And I'm like, "It's fine. I mean, it's all right."
Well, whatever one believes about their own personal diet decisions, that's different from the question of the fact that the New World Order is 100% pushing the strict vegan movement as a means of social engineering. So they're not concerned. It's kind of like organic foods. I mean, like I remember when organic was starting to get popular, you had people say, "Oh, that's part of social engineering," because Al Gore and all these different groups would talk about organic foods. So there's overlap here, and while organic food is definitely better, they were using organic as a way to also tie it into like the green stuff. So it's the same way. I'm not vegan. I don't think vegan is generally a good idea. I'm not judging you if you make that decision for you, but the point is that they want people not to be self-sufficient, not to be able to eat meat. They're going to put taxes on meat, and they're going to start calling people murderers who eat meat. That's how crazy this is getting. And
I can see that. I feel you, dude. I feel you. It's a religion.
They're trying to make it like meat is murder. They're making that the hashtag. Now we know from scripture, obviously, Paul says that forbidding meat is demonic. He's not saying that an individual can't make that decision for themselves if they want to, but he's saying that
I didn't know that. That's a good one.
What the vegans are doing is directly contrary to what Paul says. Paul says forbidding marriage and forbidding eating meat is demonic. And that's because it's a replacement way to try to feel better. And all these millennials who don't have any, biblical worldview, they're replacing it basically with a new way to have like a feel ethical. Oh, I don't eat that until
I feel you. I see that, dude. My thing is I watched a documentary called Forks Over Knives, and it kind of changed everything for me,
Well,
so
I'm totally against like the corporate big agri, big farming means and methods. That's all awful. There's no doubt about that.
Well, we'll see. And like you say, I mean, I'm not worried about like, oh, suddenly KJ supports the beast. It's like, hey, No.
I mean, look, they just put all this stuff out. Like Beyonce and Jay-Z just said, time to eat vegan. The Guardian says you got to eat vegan or you're hurting the earth. The Economist says 2019 is the year of the vegan. The UK, they want to pass laws that you can't criticize vegans.
Dang. You know what sucks, though, Jay? You may feel me on this. When I see the world trends come around, I hate the world so much in that respect. I always want to do the reverse, whether I'm with it or not. It's like, like nowadays, if I was musically inclined, I would make the most offensive heavy metal band I could. The politically incorrect, heavy metal band ever. So that's how I feel about this. But again, I'm going to run with it. And again, we're all different. And I feel led for this just for my own health. It's been a crazy ride, even that, dude. And it's crazy having a freaking heart attack. And I mean, dealing with all the changes and all I never wanted to have to care about this kind of stuff. But now it's like, if you want to stick around And apparently the Lord has other plans for me. I'm here, you know, so I might as well try to be as healthy as possible. And we'll see. But I do miss meat sometimes, and I think that's a good idea. Ultimately, I think I'm going to move into the Mediterranean lifestyle is what it is. It's just a little bit of meat, but everything else I'm doing. So we'll get there. But enough about my diet tips, people. I'm sure everybody's wondering, you know, what's KJ eating lately? But is there anything else you wanted to kind of cover about your new work you wanted folks to see, or maybe kind of tell them where they
yeah, I mean, basically, like I said, like the first 170 pages, 180 pages is what I called Hollywood Mobs, Cult, Spies, and the Occult. So like I'll just real quick, I'll read the movies I cover there is Aviator, Godfather, Clue, Point Break, which is about FBI using groups. And also the FBI has a relationship to Hollywood that a lot of people don't know about. So it's not just CIA, but also the other groups. I cover V for Vendetta as managed dialectics. The old show, The Prisoner, Ninth Gate, Polanski, a lot of occult Luciferian stuff there. Twin Peaks, Back to the Future, Goonies, Ghostbusters, Poltergeist, Stranger Things, Time Bandits. I mentioned all the MKULTRA films earlier. The weather control stuff, I do Dune, David Lynch's Dune, Avengers, Snowpiercer, the Alien and Aliens, Signs, the Shyamalan, and then the final section is Hollywood transhumanism. So I did how NGOs relate to transhumanism in Hollywood. I did Tron, the Matrix trilogy, Running Man, Terminator, Her, Ex Machina, Westworld, B movie called Cherry 2000, which predicts the sex bots.
Melanie Griffith, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I closed it with Metropolis.
Hey, man, we've got like, I mean, we've been going an hour and 45 minutes. And first off, thanks so much for sticking with me so long. You know, I love you, and it's been good talking to you again. And also congrats on all the success.
Thanks.
So do you want to maybe talk to the chat just a few minutes and see if anyone has a question for you, maybe for a few minutes, and then we'll let you go? Cool.
Yeah. And if anybody wants the book, I would say get it from jasonanalysis.com, because I offer the signed copies as opposed to if you get it from like Amazon or whatever. But Amazon doesn't even have the part 2 yet, but I have 1 and 2 if you want to get it from me. So they're
cool. Okay.
They're long. I mean, I put a lot of time into it, a lot of footnotes, a lot of citations. They're both about 400 pages each. So
that's awesome. Well, if anybody, and before we let Jay go, once again, we'll talk more about where you can find his work. If y'all have a question for Jay, anything at all, man, I mean, this is a real resource for us tonight. Just maybe write the word question first and then place your question. I'm watching right now. I'm at Penelope Pit Stop is where I'm at right now. So anything after that, and just any question you have for anything. This again, Jay is an amazing wealth of knowledge here. So let's. Thanks, yeah. Oh, you're welcome, man. It's like I said, let's talk some more behind the scenes here soon as well, because I'm in the process of either moving out in May into an RV or just re-signing up where I'm at. But I kind of want to RV and start traveling America and, you know, visiting friends. I'd love to come see you guys as well sometime, you know?
Yeah, dude, that'd be a lot of fun. You're always welcome. And we could do some cool videos or whatever. I know you don't want to show your face. You could wear a giant Mickey Mouse mask or something. You wear one of those goat head masks or something.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or the little hat the Jewish people wear. I forget what those are called. They love that. Oh, here's one question. What's your thoughts on flat Earth?
I don't find it convincing. I went and looked at a lot of the videos maybe a year ago, and I put a good amount of time into it. I probably watched, I don't know, 20 or 30 really lengthy videos, a lot of the Eric Debay videos, a lot of the I watched a lot of the debates. Some of my buddies I used to do podcasts with, they had 3 and 4 hour debates with like the Terrorism guy. And
yeah.
So I've watched a lot of the material just because I try to have an open mind about any topic, generally speaking. And I didn't find the arguments convincing. I found the arguments for the map not making sense with the flights from Sydney to Santiago. If the flat Earth map was correct, there's no way that would be squeezed into, you know, the 8 or 9 hours it takes. It ought to be taking 15 hours. And the explanations I all found to be absurd for that. The flights over Antarctica, that's not there are flights over Antarctica. So that was a bunch. I just saw a lot of baloney, and then I saw where people were taking it. Oh, suddenly Hitler's a good guy, according to Eric Dubay, and just a lot of weird, just goofy stuff that I didn't find convincing. And I know that all the flat earthers are, oh, you weren't watching the real good flat earth guy. You know, I mean, at a certain point, this is what I meant to mention earlier, KJ, when you were talking about maybe signposts about stuff. Yeah. When something becomes all one issue, like it's all about the trannies, that you have to accept the trans, or when it's all you have to accept when it's obsessively cultic like that, that's a big red flag for me, because there's a lot of other issues in life. That's not the only one. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big red flag when it's all about it's all or nothing except this thing.
Yeah, I love it. No, I'm right there with you. Same thing. And, you know, and I try to be cool about it. And like I tell people, it's, you know, it's, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I think I don't buy the moon missions. We talk a lot about NASA fraud and stuff like that. I don't find that convincing. But that doesn't, I don't do the fallacy of, NASA lies, therefore flat earth. That's not a valid argument to me.
Right. Same thing. Same thing. I think that's a part of the whole psyop. You know, it's like, obviously NASA does lie about some things, but that doesn't automatically mean the earth is flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, this is not hidden by the establishment. The establishment loves to talk about and promote flat earth. It's on everything from NBA stars to Joe Rogan to, you know, I mean, it's everywhere.
Here's another question for you. Jay, do you like the movie The Room? I believe that's the Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, hi, Mark. Look, I like not only The Room, I also like
Best Friends.
The riff tracks riffing on the moon, or on the moon, the room, the moon, same thing.
Right.
No, I riff tracks riffing on Tommy Wiseau is great. And then,
oh, that's true. Yeah, I saw that.
I even thought Franco's movie was awesome.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, I need to do a full video on him sometime, because he's definitely in the Hollywood satanic system. But I really liked that movie as well. I lived in LA, you know, for years, and we went and saw The Room. It was a whole event, you know.
Yeah.
Here's something I want to throw out, because somebody keeps asking the same question, and other people have asked, a couple others have asked as well. They're asking if you and I are saved. So do you want to answer that one first?
Well, I am a devotee of Orthodox Christianity, so we do believe in people being saved, but it's not the same conception as the evangelical notion of like praying a sinner's prayer or something like that. So we see being saved as something that happens at a point in time. It's a continual process, and then ultimately it's culminated in the resurrection.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I'll just say that, you know, I've talked about this in detail for years, but I mean, I was raised religious in a church. I've searched tons of different churches throughout my adult life, especially in the military. I was even in a cult in Maui for a while. Got out of it. There was no mind control. Yeah, a cult. It was crazy. Really? Kind of a doomsday cult. Yeah.
Wow.
I guess you never heard that one, huh?
What was it called?
Well, it was called the Maui Bible Fellowship. It's probably still out there. And there were several Bible fellowships, and they were all on different islands of Hawaii, the islands in Hawaii. And I kind of got into the group, you know. I mean, I was in the Coast Guard. I was stationed out there for a couple of years in Maui, and I did law enforcement and search and rescue. And my whole life, I've been a searcher. I always knew God, even as a child. I had weird experiences, but you know, I went through the whole church stuff when I was in my 20s and 30s. You know, going through the military, and even in like I said, the first several years in, I would travel, even in Alaska. My first tour was in Alaska. I'd go to churches alone constantly, different denominations and whatnot.
I did the same thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I eventually, long story short, got caught up with this group in Maui that, you know, is at this rich man's house. He was a married guy, but tons of money in real estate in Hawaii. He kind of recruited from AA. He had sent people to AA to pull people out of it and come to his church. Twice a week we'd meet up. There's about 30 of us in his mansion. He had a mansion in Kihei, Maui. And, you know, they had spoken tongues and all that weird stuff. They tried to get me to speak in tongues all the time. And I eventually faked it to make them leave me alone. You know, I got tired of them bugging me, so I finally. But anyway, so it's there's so much there. Sorry, Jay. I've told the story in the past. It's a long story, and I'll have to tell you sometime because there's a lot of crazy stuff.
Well, I need to have you. I'd like to have you on the stream, and we could just we could interview you, and you could tell your crazy stories.
Totally. Well, you let me know afterwards. We'll do it, and I'll tell you the whole story about the cult. But I guess the point is, eventually, it came back to the very simple faith of, Jesus Christ is my connection to my Heavenly Father. He is my personal Lord and Savior. I try to follow the ways of Christ as opposed to being a Pharisee or being religious or anything like that. I believe we're saved by grace, even gays and killers and everything else. If you truly take Christ, accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, you can be forgiven of anything, and eventually, whether you want to or not, you will cave. We want to do the best for Him, but it's a lifetime process, So that's my thing, and I'm not a very religious guy, and that's kind of the difference. But I love Jesus and God, and I want to be the best KJ I can be that God made me to be. Are you with me? Or did I lose you? Okay, cool. All right, let's keep on going down here. Let's see what else we got. There's any questions here. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? And if you see something, let me know. There's the both saved. I think we answered that. Here's one. What are your thoughts on the overall final scene and the looping aspect of Twin Peaks: The Return?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I do write about that in the second book. So I give my thesis. I don't want to give too much away because I know KJ hasn't seen it. A lot of people haven't. But if you pay attention to the Jowday references in towards the end of season 3, which we know is the imprisoning demon that wants to bring about the birth of Antichrist, basically, is what the way it's described. I think that they wanted to leave it open. I think Lynch has talked about the possibility of a new season if it's popular enough. So they want to leave it open. But I really think that we're supposed to get the message that Coop can't alter this. He can't. He can try to fix what happened, but it's not ultimately able to be fixed because I can't say it'll ruin it for. I don't want to ruin it for KJ, but
that's okay.
I'll just say that in the book I do have a thesis on it. Good,
man. Thank you, and that's worth looking up too. Here's another one from Josiah Lambert, and let me know, Jay, if you get to the point you got to move on or whatever. But it's always nice kind of ask, see what the folks are asking. He's asking, do you think that everyone in Hollywood is part of the Illuminati? I say a stern no. But what do you say about that?
No, I mean not the lower level people. I mean, I think that it's pretty much a few thousand people that run all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be like the top moguls. It's not going to be, no.
It's like the Masons, and it's like Albert Pike had written before, that there are low-level Masons. They're so-called porch Masons,
right?
For a reason. My grandfather from a small town in Oklahoma was one of those Masons because he loved Jesus, loved God, but he was a Mason. I didn't get it when I was a kid. But, now that I'm older, I do. But there are probably like 8 guys that went to that lodge in this small town. I don't think they were worshiping, sacrificing children to the devil or anything, No,
it's a top-down type thing. So
right. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Here's one. Do you believe AI will ever achieve full awareness?
No.
I don't think
it's possible. Well, if you mean by full awareness, like could they construct a system that like can surveil everything in real time? Maybe. But if you mean like self-aware or self-conscious, no, I don't think that's possible. And I would even say that philosophically, you could refute that. I mean, there's the famous paper about Gödel and incompleteness theorem and AI. That's a famous essay, which I referenced a lot. And that kind of makes the argument that it can never get consciousness is something unique. It's not something that you can ever get within an enclosed mathematical set system. And with computers, it's all programmed. It's all sets of,
it's the only way that Satan's going to create life, so to speak.
It's a mimic. And I mean, an algorithm can't be self-conscious. It's retarded to even think that. So no.
There's a couple good ones here. The first one's there's a second one here I'm really curious about. First one, of course, is just says, where is Jamie Henshaw?
Jamie is my fiance, and so we don't live together. She lives in another place, and but we will most likely be getting married in the next few months.
Jamie's great, and I had to ask that one because it was Barton Fink, who happens to be my favorite Coen Brothers movie of all time.
That's a good one.
Big Lebowski. Yeah, Barton Fink's fantastic. Okay, here's one, and I'm curious because they've actually there's a few movies coming out about this person in the next year. One of them, Quentin Tarantino is making. This person said, Jay, the movie previews for The Haunting of Sharon Tate? Question marks. Have you heard about that at all?
Oh, glad you mentioned that. It just got sent to me like 2 days ago when I made my video. I didn't know there was a movie called Haunting of Sharon Tate coming out. Is it a documentary or a movie? I don't even know, but I just made my video on what I called Eyes Wide Shut 30 years before. So it's very much it's in the style of KJ style videos. If you like KJ's video, you'll like the way that I kind of did it in his style of talking with creepy music, and everybody liked the video, but they kind of bitched about the music. I thought, well, it needed to be the Eyes Wide Shut chanting slowed down so that it didn't ding the copyright. So it's like everybody's like, what is that? What is that? It's so weird. Yeah. So it's the Eyes Wide Shut scene slowed down really, really, really slow. But basically there's this movie with Sharon Tate in it as a witch. It's her first movie, and she plays a witch. And it's a movie about a sacrifice cult in an elite French city, like an elite French castle family. And it's called Eye of the Devil. So it's basically Eyes Wide Shut 30 years before Eyes Wide Shut, with her in it in this weird predictive programming kind of role where it's about human sacrifice. She appears to get sacrificed. So I'm looking forward to it. And I had no idea when I was making that video. I just happened across that old movie and I thought that would make a good video. I didn't know about this new one coming out.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino's newest movie is going to be about the Sharon Tate murders, and it's going to be one of his movies. You know, it's got like Brad Pitt and all the big names.
Oh, I knew he was making a Manson movie. So Haunting of Sharon Tate is the Tarantino movie?
Different. No, that's actually another one. That's why I'm like, okay. There's some reason they're pushing this out. There's some reason they want us to see this. We're being prepared for something. So the way I think is maybe be prepared for a literal murder in Hollywood coming up soon.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Have you seen Eye of the Devil?
Which one was that? I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's an old movie with Donald Pleasance and Sharon Tate, her first movie, and it's got David Niven and Deborah Carr. And yeah, it's on YouTube. You should watch it. It's Eyes Wide Shut 30 years before. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, I'll check that out, man. Thank you. And okay, here's another one. Question: what year did you wake up? It's for you.
When I was 18, 19, I started going to Bible study groups. I started reading the Bible, and then that led to buying a lot of books in the Christian bookstore about cults. So I started reading about the UN and theosophy and cults around age 18, 19, when that would have been 1997 or 8. So that's kind of what started me. But then, you know, as we all know, like it's a long process. So 9/11 was a big event because I was already aware of the New World Order and that kind of stuff. 98, 97, 98. I knew about Marxism and the UN being bad news. And then 9/11 kind of woke a lot of people up to the government side of thing. I wasn't awake to it being a conspiracy right away. It took about 2002 or 3 where I started watching, you know, people started putting out videos. That's when the internet was starting to get popular and people were watching videos online. It was like the new thing was E-Bombs World and that kind of stuff. And I remember, I think it was probably, it was E-Bombs World had a clip of anomalies with 9/11, World Trade Center 7, and the Pentagon. And I was like, oh yeah, dude, that's official story. That's not true.
In fact, I made that movie, the scariest movie ever made, and it's bookmarked by the towers being hit. So I knew that was a ritual even back then. And
oh wow,
right. And the years have gone on, and I, you know, we see it for what it is. The whole Bush family, you've covered them. You know how crazy wicked these people are. You know?
Yeah. So I would say 98 to 2003 was the period where I really was awakened to conspiracy. I started reading about the Illuminati, started reading about Codex. I read Codex Magica a long time ago. And from there, it just kind of branched out into all that. I didn't really get the Hollywood occult stuff until probably about 2005 or 6. I started noticing occult because I always loved movies. I wanted to be in movies. I wanted to do that kind of stuff. So I had retained a lot of these movies that I watched as, you know, like Mel Gibson's Conspiracy Theory. That came out the year I graduated. So I remember going to see that. And I was like, that was weird. What's all that conspiracy stuff he was talking about?
And you're kind of an X-Files geek too, right?
Yeah, but the weird thing was that for a long time throughout my 20s, I didn't watch TV. I wasn't in a cult, but I was super evangelical, devoted, where I didn't listen to secular music and I didn't watch TV, or movie, because I was so into that stuff before that I wanted to step away.
Yeah, I did that in Austin when I was doing the bounty hunting stuff for several years. I lived with a bunch of musicians. We didn't have a TV. We stayed away from all of it, man. So, and that's in the beginning of me making videos, probably 2012, 2013.
Oh, wow.
You know? Yeah.
Well, so I stepped away, and then I kind of read a whole bunch through my 20s, and then I was able to look back at film and stuff. And if you step away from that for a long time and then look back at it, you're like, whoa, this is like so obviously just totally satanic everywhere.
Dude, that's so crazy. Okay, so here's the deal. So we were like in a kind of on the outskirts of Austin. I don't want to say it's a farm area. It was a neighborhood, but just had a lot of land. We had 1.5 acres in the backyard, and we actually built like a frisbee golf course back there. Okay, so, but in an old kind of shed that we had out there, one night we all found there was a bunch of crap in there. There was an old TV, and we thought, hey, we haven't seen TV in like 2 years. Let's plug this up. So I went and bought, a Radio Shack, bought an antenna, came back. We put the TV on. First show that came on was an episode of 3 Men, or what is it, 2.5 Men or something? 2.5 Men. Man, I mean, every joke, a dick joke, fart joke, butt joke. I mean, it lasted maybe 10 minutes. We turned it off, and that was it. We were done with television, but you know what I mean? And that show wound up winning Emmys, that 2.5 Men.
Yeah. I've never seen that show, but I do. Really I can say that when one of the things that did trigger doing Esoteric Hollywood was X-Files, because even though I didn't watch it during the time that it was on TV, because I was in my super evangelical avoid TV phase.
Yeah.
Around 2007, I decided one time to watch X-Files, and then I was hooked. So I went, like, within one summer, I just went through the entire series of X-Files, and I started realizing, because I had read super duper into conspiracy stuff, and then I watched all the X-Files, and I was like, man, that's full of there's a lot of goofy stuff, there's a lot of silly, but there's also a lot of real conspiracy in X-Files. So that, along with movies like Conspiracy Theory, that kind of triggered the idea of, and then obviously I was watching, of doing movie analyses based on, symbolism, based on geopolitics, based on conspiracy, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I asked because somebody actually asked, what was your favorite X-Files episode, if you have one?
I pretty much know them by heart. Like I know X-Files very good. I like a lot of season 1. I really like the one with the gender bending Amish alien cult. That one cracks me up. That one's so funny. It's good because they seduce Scully by like touching her hand here. It's just so absurd, like an Amish alien cult. It's just so wacky. That's one of my favorites. But I like a lot of them. I didn't used to like a lot of the Monster of the Week episodes, but as I've rewatched the series over the years, I do appreciate even the goofy Monster of the Week episodes. Demons, I think, which is the one where Mulder wakes up and he can't remember anything, and it turns out to have been he was visiting a doctor who was involved in MKULTRA and mind control. That's a pretty awesome episode. I think it's just called Demons. The Die Hand die Verletzt, which is the hand that kills in German. That's the episode with Azazel.
I think Darren Morgan wrote that. He wrote some of those occultic and even
that's the occult one about ritual murder and ritual abuse, and it references all that. And of course, Scully is like skeptical. She's like, there's no credible evidence that there's any satanic ritual abuse. And like, you know, obviously Mulder's the only one that actually believes it. That one's a great one. Syzygy, that's a great one about the two girls in high school that get possessed.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you remember the Jack Black one from way back?
Yeah, I do. That's the one with it's also Giovanni Ribisi is
right.
He gets possessed by the he has the power of calling the lightning down, and but he's obsessed with his teacher, Mishkavit. Mishkavit.
That was such a good one. Even through the newer season they had about a year ago, I liked the one with the Hollywood starlet that would put people, you know, young people on their back and suck their blood.
That was crazy. I forgot about that. Yeah, I watched the last two new seasons. I enjoyed them. I thought they were pretty good. They had a lot of juicy conspiracy tidbits. But there's so many in the first 9 seasons that I really like. It's hard to pick. Do you remember the one with the preacher who's the snake handling church episode? That one's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The reason that one's great is because the new agey liberal church, the demon is the minister of that church. And you think that the demon is going to be the guy who's at the snake handling church, like he's going to be this,
right?
But it's actually the liberal minister who's the demon. I thought that was great.
It reminds me of the one where all the school teachers were low-key Satan worshipers. That was a good one too.
That's the Die Hand die Verletzt one.
There you go. Okay, there you go. Hey, okay, so here's another one. I typically don't get into these things, but I can answer it myself. And I don't know what your answer will be, but someone says, "What's your opinion on YouTuber Jonathan Kleck?" And I get this a lot because, you know, some people know I'm friends with him. You know, he lives in Texas. I've actually been to his home a few times. Like, we're friends. He's controversial, but my thing is this, that, you know, we have differences of opinion, Jonathan and I, but that's not what makes us friends. It's the things that we connect with, the things we agree on that pulls us together. And, you know, again, I don't have to believe everything my friends believe. If you had to, what do you want? A bunch of carbon copies of yourself? You know, I don't want that. You know, I need differences. And he's a friend of mine, but go ahead, Jay. I don't know if you know. I
don't even know who it is. So
you don't even know who Jonathan is. So, okay. I get that a lot. He's kind of a controversial figure for some, you know, but.
Well, I've been graced with the opportunity to, in the last year, interact with quite a good sized crowd of decent sized YouTubers. So I've got to interact with some fairly big name people, but
we've also been on Coast to Coast too, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was on there a couple times. We had some pretty good conversations there. The second time I was on, it was a lot more. They gave me a bigger spot, so I was able to talk a lot longer, and we got into the Laurel Canyon scene quite a bit, and but I mean, a lot of the YouTube is so big, and there's so many people that have, you know, pretty sizable channels that there's a lot of people I have no idea who people are talking about.
Yeah, it's okay. No worries. Yeah, same thing. Like I said, I typically wouldn't even ask that. Here's one. It says, my question for the guest: how does the Reagan technology work if we live on a globe? Oh, I didn't see all this. It might be another flat earth thing. I think it's a flat earth thing. All right, let's see. No offense, guys, but there's only so many flat earth questions I can ask. You know what I mean?
I don't know what Reagan technology. You mean Star Wars Defense Initiative? What does that mean?
I don't know. Here's another one about the firmament. So you're going to start getting some flat earth stuff. Again, folks, no offense, but not really my thing. Someone says, what's your favorite Chubbs hashtag? I don't even know what to make of that. I think we've hit that point where we might be good. Like, we've gone over a couple hours. I don't want to hold you any longer than you can hang, but how are you doing there? Anything you want to?
I've had a lot of fun. I mean, if you need to go, that's cool. I mean, this is like my 5th or 6th hour streaming the day. So,
oh, good. Okay. Well, let me scroll down some more and just see if I can see any more questions for us.
My view of firmament is that it just means the heavens. It just means the skies. I mean, the Orthodox take on Genesis is we do believe that it's there's a famous book defending creation that. It's kind of the standard by Surfam Rose for defending Genesis and creation and rebuking evolution. Giant, massive book, but it's really good, called Genesis, Creation, Early Man.
I did a video a while back. I put on the website. It's I think I called it "Our Universe is a Mass of Demonic Black Goo."
I saw that. I watched that.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice. That's the book.
No, I'm saying I watched your video.
Oh, my bad. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, so even with that, I mean, I think that there's I don't know, man. There's a lot going on out there that we don't fully understand. But even in that video, I found some articles I brought up about how there is water in space. They really believe there's water in space. So perhaps that genuinely is the firmament from the Bible. But some people use that and immediately leap, straight to the flat Earth stuff. Again, it's like, and that means there's a flat Earth. It's like, not necessarily.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of those arguments you could argue that for infinite days, and if anybody's, all I'm saying is, anybody's interested in my view, it's reflected very well in that very large book. That's the view.
Cool. So that's good. All right, let's see. Here's one. Can Jay give us his reflections on the validity of the scriptures as a whole? And that's from Generic.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 or 3 talks I've done just on the authenticity, inspiration, inerrancy of scripture. So I definitely affirm that. That's the traditional Orthodox view. I defend that pretty frequently. It's a little complex. I have a pretty long talk on the New Testament, the reliability of the New Testament documents. So if anybody wants a really long introduction to that and the books I recommend defending the scriptures, they can watch that video. I think it's just called "Are the New Testament Documents Reliable?" or something like that.
Exactly, man. I wanted to throw that out real quick for you too, Jay, is that if y'all didn't know, I mean, Jay actually has done a lot of debates as well, like defending the faith, defending the Bible. So check some of that out. Go ahead.
Yeah, most famously probably is the debate with JF, somewhat famous YouTuber on YouTube, right, with who's a biologist of some kind, or I forget what his exact, but that's probably the most famous debate, was the JF debate. So we debated theism, atheism, and there have been some. I debated Kokesh, pretty well-known YouTuber. We debated atheism, and debated Nick Fuentes on Roman Catholicism, debated Robert Taylor on atheism. There's I can't think of it, maybe 1 or 2 lesser-known atheist guys we've done some debates, but yeah, there's a lot of that to check out too in the playlists at my channel. Also, yeah, just you can subscribe to J Dyer if you want to get more of that information.
Yes, definitely, guys. Subscribe to Jay as well. Here's one that is interesting, I think. It says, have you guys heard of the Dajjal? And of course, I know you have. I have too. He's the Antichrist, described very well in Islam, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, in fact, one of the signs of his return is supposed to be a child born with one eye, and that's happened actually multiple times in the Middle East over the last few years. Some people think that Obama's the Dajjal, actually.
Look, it's not fair. It's really not fair. Can't believe you talk to me that way, KJ. After all the rapport we've had, and you want to talk to me about Michelle being a girl and calling me the Antichrist. I can't believe it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
What do you think about him? Do you think he's going to somehow come back into the main stage on things in the world, or no?
I don't. I mean, I can't fathom who they will run. Is it going to? I mean, would they really try to run Michelle Obama? I mean, if that happened, then yeah, Obama would be. It would be like a reverse version of Bill and Hillary. Like,
right.
I hope not, but it's entirely possible. I mean, I'm surprised that we don't already have like the lesbian trans sex bot running. Well, that
I know, right?
Is that going to run for president and win?
Well, what do you think about that crazy Cortez girl? What do you think about her?
I think she looks like a mix between J-Lo and a horse.
Yeah, she's got an interesting look and crazy eyes. She's got them crazy eyes, I say.
Yeah, every picture of her is like,
"Hi guys, yeah, I'm going to get you." Yeah,
we talked about her on Boiler Room last night for a good while, but her cringy dance video was such a contrived fake controversy. Like, it was like Footloose, like Kevin Bacon Footloose type thing. Like if you criticize her dance video, it's because you were a stuffy old white Bible Belt person who doesn't believe in. And it was such a fake controversy. It was so stupid. Totally. I think she's a lunatic.
She's crazy. It's going to be interesting.
75% tax. That's insane.
Right, and taxing misogyny. Jeepers. Good luck with that.
She's that total foundation creation. Like, everything she says is just scripted from the foundations who want the Agenda 21. all that.
Well, hey, man, I guess I'm not seeing any more questions for now. I
Okay.
may have missed some, but some of them are like the flat Earth things or whatnot. And you know, I guess I'll go ahead and let you go for now. It's been about 2 hours 20 minutes. It's a lot longer than I thought you'd hang out or be able to, and I really appreciate it, man.
No, man, I was looking forward to this. I'm love your content. I think you've gotten better and better and better. And in fact, you spur me on to make better videos and try to have better quality content. I think you're doing it really well. And I'm just thankful that you would have me on, and I hope you enjoy the books. They should be arriving pretty soon. But yeah, if anybody wants signed copies, don't support Blofeld Bezos. Get them from Jay's Analysis in the shop, and I'll send you signed copies.
Oh yeah, please tell them any where can they find your work? Go ahead and throw that out.
You go to jaysanalysis.com. There's a shop button. Just click on the shop, and you can order that. It's an easy automated process. You can order the book there, or you can subscribe to my work there if you want to for $4.95 a month, or Patreon or any of that stuff too, and then YouTube. So that's pretty much it.
Guys, please check out Jay's work. We seriously just scratched the surface. In fact, we'll talk later, Jay, and I'll come to a show with you too. And
awesome.
And I want you all to check that out as well. Just not just for me. I'm saying to hear more of Jay's perspectives. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm telling you, we just scratched the surface. But man, Jay, I love you, man, and I appreciate
you, man. Thanks, God.
As well. You know, and we'll talk later. But thanks so much for doing the show, and just God bless. And we'll talk to you later. Okay.
All right, man. God bless you too. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, guys. So, hey, I just want to say thanks to you guys as well. Thanks so much to the mods showing up. I see my anti-NWO Canada friend here. I haven't seen you in there in a while. F.E. Tamara's in there. I think I saw K. Smalls. Good seeing you, though, man. Thanks, ladies, for the help, as always. Thanks so much for you all listening and checking out the show. I'll leave links below to some of Jay's work. And please, check Jay's work out, man. I mean, it's awesome. For me, I'm so suspicious of people. It's hard for me to find people I trust and even want to kind of support sometimes. And I've always been that way. The same people I care about today or trust today are the same ones I trusted 10 years ago. You know, it's kind of, that's the way I get with people. And there's not many of them, but Jay's one of them. So, and thank you to you guys, man. Links below if you want to support my shows and my work. Let me know of maybe some other guests you might want to see on sometime as well in the comment sections. And y'all have a great weekend. I got some more videos and shows to go as always. And until next time, you guys take care, okay? Have a good one.